Welcome back to the Quicksilver Pro Round 2 action unfolding in the water. Wiggly Dantes and Michelle Bourez about to fight it out here for a spot in Round 3. A big heat for Wiggly, pressing for a spot in the top 10. He can do that with a huge result. Michelle Bourez, he's trying to fight his way back into a position to re-qualify for the Championship Tour for 2016. Plenty of time on the clock, just under 29 minutes remaining. Ronnie Blakey joined by former Championship Tour competitor Ross Williams. Ross, a great heat. One of the power hounds on tour, Michelle Bourez, going up against one of the more stylish surfers, Wiggly Dantes.
Yeah, this is a good matchup. Regular footer, goofy footer, and Wiggly, he's got a knack for finding the barrel when there's anywhere near a barrel in the zone. So it has been kind of tough, though. That last heat, Josh Kerr had to grind.
He did. Glenn Hall just was right in it until the final stages, but Josh Kerr did enough. He's moving on through to Round 3. We'll hear from him shortly. But I do like this heat. It looks like it's still pretty tough out there, just finding those gems. But occasionally, just watching from the beach and looking out there, you do see one open up. And a 10-point ride could be around any corner as we see our two competitors scrapping to get into that insider. No takers there.
Crazy morning, too. It's really sunny, bright. The wind has backed off a bit. It's not as brisk as it was yesterday, not as fresh. So light offshore winds. It's really nice conditions. We just need them to find those gems to cooperate in terms of, that straight line on a sandbar. You get a lot of closeouts. They're just looking for those A-frames.
27.5 minutes to go. And we have Wiggly and Michelle Bourez looking for a wave here. Interesting heat in that Michelle's trying to shore up his position on the Championship Tour. He did miss a couple of events due to injury, so he'd definitely have a good case for an injury wildcard, but it looks like we could have a few surfers vying for that at the end of the year, and you're never guaranteed that injury wildcard, even if you've missed a couple of events. But Michelle, he's still got enough time to move into the top 22 with some big results, and I'm sure Matt Banting is kind of cheering him on too, because it's going to be a hard decision for the Commissioner's office to make at the end of the year.
That's right. Between Matt Banting, Michelle Bourez, and Jordy Smith, those three, you would imagine, especially if they don't qualify on their own, will be put in their letter for that wild card, because they've been injured for a couple of events at least.
There's the Jeep leaderboards rankings. And we're having a look at numbers 10 through to 18, because Wiggly Dantes is in the mix there at number 12, and a good chance at moving into the top 10 and challenging Italo Ferreira for the Rookie of the Year title. Italo, though, he got a little bonus jump moving directly through to Round 3. Alejo Munez, he pulled out of the event due to an injury suffered yesterday in the first round. And you know what? I'm sure Italo would rather be fighting it out against his good friend for that spot in Round 3. Everyone pretty devastated for Alejo that he's been forced to withdraw from the contest. Yeah,
Italo, for sure. He wanted his buddy to compete with him and go out there and battle, but at the same time, he will take it. Just a nice little haul pass there. The waves are tricky, so out there's a lot of luck involved, so you take those breaks when you can get them.
Just over 25.5 minutes to go. Ross, you spent a number of years on the Championship Tour, and you had years similar to Wiggly where you'd already firmed up your position on the Championship Tour with some solid results early on, and then you had years like Michelle Bourez is having, where you're coming into the last few events and you're desperate to get yourself a solid finish and move to the top end of the ratings. What do you think the mindset is for these two competitors out there at the moment?
It's not easy. You don't want that extra noise between the ears. That's the bottom line. We talked about, a good example is Kaloy Andino, who's having another shocker as well. Or he's also having a shocker, but he's freed up because he's qualified through the QS. So it just allows you to surf the way you want to. You're not kind of tense. If you're thinking about numbers, your position on the ratings, it can tie you up a little bit, especially mentally. And then surfing, it's not a conducive way to surf good. You have to be aggressive. You don't want to be thinking about crunching those numbers.
And Wiggly Dantes, on the other hand, he's already guaranteed his spot on the CT, you'd think, for 2016. What do you think his goals are now?
I think for him, he's got he's in that part of the ratings where maybe for him it would even be confusing, because it's like, well, do I shoot for the top 10 now or top 5, or do I just be content with making the 22? So for him, I think it's a good idea to make some mini goals. Maybe shoot for that top 5.
Well, just over 24 minutes to go. And no major scores locked in just yet. We've had these two surfers just fighting for position, really, in this lineup. There's a wave with a bit of a corner here. And they do get tangled up once again. No interference, but it just seems like they're trying to sell each other on some waves at the moment.
Interesting, yeah. A little battle there between the two. They are hugged up right next to each other, kind of just playing a little cat and mouse, seeing who will blink first. It's a pretty confusing lineup. You know, they're at the very south end of where that wave is pretty good. Just north of them, there's been a lot of free surfers up there all morning getting shacked. So they're at, you know, kind of a weird part of the sandbar. There's some scrapping going around. So every now and then a wave will really hit the bank right. But the majority of the waves hitting the zone where they are kind of lined up and closed out.
So interesting to see such a huge playing field and these two guys right on top of each other.
It was a trip.
You can guarantee today, even if no waves are ridden in the opening 10 minutes of this heat, I'd say it'd be a real surprise if we saw a heat restart. There's been plenty of waves. It's not inconsistent out there at the moment.
Good call.
These guys are just fighting it out.
Yeah, that's a good call, Ronnie. There's been enough waves. They could have, you know, scrapped into one or two. I don't think there's been any, you know, cherries that have come in, but there's been waves to contest on, so I don't think they'll get a restart either. There's still no priority. No one stood up on a wave. No priority is allocated until a competitor stands up.
22 and a half minutes to go. We've already seen some very frustrating heats for competitors today. Ricardo Christie on the wrong side of rhythm, had the lead going to the final stages. Nat Young snatching the win, serving Ricardo another early round loss, which is frustrating for the surfer trying to qualify. But also Glenn Hall just couldn't find himself a decent wave out there. Looking back earlier on, and you know, it was the same story for Ritzar and Bourez. Dusty Payne had a tough time out there. You see that frustration boil over sometimes with competitors here, as we see Michelle now taking the first wave of Heat 8. Drives off the bottom, plenty of power, well-timed hit, great adjustment, and manages a float on a tricky section, arriving late to the lip, but great control, and Wiggly behind him, stalling for the barrel now. Not a really deep tube, but climbs up and gets a little finish as well. 21 and a half minutes to go. There's your opening exchange, waiting for scores to drop.
There you go. Pretty good couple of maneuvers. It looked like Michel, as he was bottom turning, was going to get to that section kind of in an awkward position, maybe late, but it panned out for him. So two decent maneuvers. Didn't totally ride out of that last one. See how sticky the judges get with that. Wiggly looks like he definitely got the best of the two.
21 minutes remaining. I'm going to get back to some of those frustrations and some stories of past years where it's bubbled over for competitors in a moment, but we're going to see some replays in a minute. With just under 21 minutes to go. The judges, I think, still have a bit of it more excitement for the barrel rides out there at the moment. There's still some big pits on offer.
I agree. I think that's where it's pretty easy as a competitor to get big points with ease. You know, get a tube ride. You know, watch how trippy this section is right here. He got there pretty late, but it panned out for him. It was really bizarre how it allowed him to hit it. Even that second maneuver, again, he arrived up to the lip late, but he kind of pulled it off. But as you could see right there, didn't really ride out of it clean. Not the best barrel, but nonetheless, a little tube time for Wiggly. And then another late maneuver, but he rode out of it. So I think both these scores will be average, but it's a start. And Ronnie, we did see Josh Kerr from the last heat get a great barrel right in front of us. So keep in mind, if you've just joined us, these competitors are a good 300 yards plus to the north of the main scaffolding. They're just trying to find an open part of the bank where the waves are contestable, but the tide is coming in. The water's getting deeper, and that makes these waves change constantly. So with that little sneaky ride at the end of the heat for Josh, or after the heat, we'll see if the competitors take notice. They might move back down here.
A standout year for Wiggly Dantes, the rookie. 25 years of age and in 12th position, pushing for a top 10 finish. And scores starting to come through now from the opening exchange as Wiggly finds a big set wave and it holds open. And he punches through the back of that one. He had a 2.93 on his first wave. Michel Bourez He got a slightly better score, just a 3-point ride. And Wiggly pin drops. Dives under that wave.
That was pretty cool. And the reason he did that is to quickly kind of penetrate the water and get underneath that whitewash so that he could get back out there quickly. So kind of a convenient way to bail your board. But Wiggly Dantes, you know, I think the first time I saw him surfing on the North Shore of Hawaii, he was ripping pipe. Maybe he was 21, 22 years old. So he has a knack for this kind of tube riding right here. He's been comfortable for a long time in big hollow waves. And in fact, keep your eyes peeled when we get to Pipeline. Wiggly will be one of those guys that could fly under the radar, but turn a lot of heads.
He climbs onto the back of the ski to get back to the takeoff zone. 18 and a half minutes to go. Let's hear from the current world number 11, who's moved on through to round 3, Josh Kerr, getting the win over Glenn Hall in that last heat. He's with Rosie Hodge.
Outside of the top 10 in that 11th spot, you know, we always put the focus on the top 5. What's it going to take for you to break into that conversation, Josh? We always seem to be waiting for you to kind of break that barrier.
Yeah, probably a win would help. I still haven't got one of them under my belt, so that's all I'm really focusing on right now. Is just getting that first win out of the way, and then I feel like once I get one under my belt, I'll be a bit more confident getting a couple more.
And then obviously we've seen today the conditions are really tricky, you know, smoke and mirrors a little bit from the beach. Give us your perspective in the water competing.
Yeah, I knew when going out there that guys were having a hard time, like Dusty coming in with like a 1-point heat total and stuff. I'm like, it's France, that happens, you know. So I went out there and then I started seeing these teepees. I'm like, oh my goodness, you get some like 10s out here right now. And I started thinking, oh, I'm going to get a nuts on them. Just feel like it's going to happen. But it never happened.
Well, we can save it for round number 3 because you're marching on through. Back to you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Rosie. Josh Kerr, semi-final here last year. Wants to make the last heat in 2015. Wants to get his first win. Just over 17 minutes remaining. Scores coming through for Wiggly Dantes on his last wave. 3.47.
Yeah, so judges keeping it really snug, pretty tight there. 3.47. He wasn't super deep, so no doubt that's where the judges, they kind of picked that apart, that barrel, but it was a big one. You even saw Wiggly kind of do a look back, maybe a semi-claim. So 3.47, I would say definitely, you know, that's a little harsh for sure. I thought maybe it was going to be a 5.55, but they want to see you get behind that curtain, so that's why they kept it so low.
16 and a half minutes to go. We've been talking about this lineup, just how frustrating it can be for competitors. They know there's gems out there. Just finding yourself in the right place at the right time can be difficult. And it's not unusual to see upset results in the Quiksilver Pro, as we see Wiggly having a look at that one. I remember Mick Campbell and Andy Irons having a pretty close heat out here in the past. And it actually boiled over once they got back to the competitors area. Came to blows, in fact. As we see Michelle now just pulling through the back of this one. But that was massive news in the surfing world when that unfolded.
I was there for that. I remember looking down on Andy Irons. He was showering after the heat. He was really boiled over. He was mad. And then Mick Campbell came in, and Mick wasn't the type of fella to back down to any kind of grudge. And they definitely had a little scuffle. Mick Campbell was a feisty guy too. You know, he's not afraid to mix it up. But you know, I think they quickly let that simmer, and Andy realized, all right, maybe I'll pick my battles a different day at a different time. But he was super feisty. He was fired up.
Well, just over 15 minutes to go, and Wiggly has a narrow lead. Michelle Bourez chasing a 3.41.
Yeah, judges can be cruel. If you get a pocket ride that's not super deep, they really, you know, they're not happy. You can see right there, you know, that was pretty good barrel. I mean, if I'm in a booth judging, I'm throwing that about a 6.55, somewhere in there. You know, I know they want to see you pretty deep, but that's not exactly easy for him to position himself deep enough to get that barrel. And it's not as if he dodged anything. He wasn't trying to get out of the way of any harm. He showed some commitment. Beautiful wave, well overhead. But again, the judge is keeping it really low just because they didn't like the fact that he wasn't really deep. But I'm calling this pretty harsh.
Well, back in the day, I think that probably would have scored, you know, a good 10 years ago, that would have probably scored pretty well. There would have been some taking the wave into account, the quality of the wave. But these days, if the nose of your board is poking out of the tube and you're not completely covered up, they tend to really cruel you for it.
Yeah, and here's my problem with it. It's not as if it was bad surfing. He didn't race in front of it. He wasn't scared. He wasn't timid. He wasn't poor positioning. You know, that's not below average surfing. That was decent. You know, that's good surfing. So if you break it down in that scale that you look at with the excellent ride, the good surfing and poor surfing, I don't see how that's poor.
Well, just over 13 and a half minutes to go. Let's get some insight on equipment with Pete Mel.
Thanks, Ronnie. So I'm down here with Joel Parkinson's backup board now. He's made the decision to go out on a quad. He was out there this morning bright and early, broke one of his, or actually buckled one of his quads. He's going to take 2 down there, but he also has the backup of his 3-fin. They're exactly the same measurements, a 6'1", 18 and 7/8, 2 and 3/8. I mean, exact duplicates, by Jason Stevenson, but one as a thruster and one as a quad. And he feels like that if the winds were to turn onshore and it goes to turns, he's going to whip out the thruster and make that change. He's got his pit crew here. He's got 3 boards down on the beach, and he's up against Keanu Asing, so he's going to pull out all the stops.
Yeah, he'd be very wary of Keanu too. Keanu's had 2 heats with Joel this year and beaten him on both occasions.
It's true.
Just over 12 and a half minutes to go. Thanks for the update, Pete. Love hearing what the boys are riding out there. As we see Michel Bourez and Wiggly Dantes just appealing to the on-site announcer for a bit of an update on the situation. Priority is with Michel Bourez. He's in second spot. He's chasing a 3.41 at this stage. You can just see all the water moving. We've got waves rolling in. There's a bit of feedback from the shore break. A couple of waves rolling back out to sea.
Yeah, that's the problem with that bank up there. It's been good this morning on a low tide, but as that tide comes up a little bit, you'll see more backwash. That was how we saw Alejo Moniz get hurt. When that backwash hits the barrel, it makes it wonk and clamp shut. Really tough to make it out. There's a lot of luck involved.
Well, let's see if these surfers can't tap into a decent set wave sometime soon. Just under 12 minutes to go. Let's hear from the surfer that was eliminated in that last heat, Glenn Hall with Strider Wasilewski.
Thanks, boys. Yeah, Glenn Hall, from the beach here, it looks like epic conditions, and once you get out there, it's a bit of a struggle to find them.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the dream conditions as far as, the weather and the winds and the size of the swell, but we're on a bit of a tricky part of the reef, the bank, so it's kind of a bit of backwash, a bit of wobble, and it comes in as a TP and then just straightens out and stretches and bends away, and yeah, I think everyone's struggled. Obviously there's been some high scores, but I know it's tough for sure.
So with, obviously requalification's looking rough, and you've got a lot of stuff on the horizon for yourself, though. What do you got going?
Yeah, I'm not too phased at all about the requalification. Like about, 3 months ago, I found myself enjoying watching heats more than surfing them, and I was kind of like had to question what was going on. And I'd even go down to the event for the early every day, and I'd never surf. I'd just go down there and watch, and I was really enjoying watching more than surfing. So I kind of started to think to myself, it might be time to. If I've lost the drive, you don't want to be there. So it's qualifying, I'm not bothered at all. I'm just going to cruise. I missed the last couple of primes, and I'm just kind of just going with it and enjoying the last year of the family on the road, and look into some roles for next year. So there's a few things that might happen. So we'll see how we go.
And on this event now, you flip over into coach mode for Wilkinson.
Yeah, for sure. I'll sit back and help Wilco and see how he goes, and fingers crossed he can get a good result here.
Well, there you go. Good luck with that. That's coming up, so we'll let you get back to it.
Cheers.
Back to you guys.
Thank you, Strider. Well, that's pretty interesting news there from Glenn Hall. He's going to call it a day if he doesn't re-qualify at the end of the year. And the roles that he's talking about are in a coaching capacity. As we see live action now and pulling into the barrel, Michel Bourez gets some cover. Drives out onto the open face. Little backhand carve now. A bit more of a vertical approach to finish. Doesn't ride out of that last turn, which is a shame. A major manoeuvre there to finish that ride off. Just under 10 minutes to go, Ross.
Well, there you go. Nice tube right there from Michel Bourez, and he could see he got just a little more tucked in than that last wave from Wiggly, deeper behind the curtain. So Michel Bourez, nice left-handers. Earlier today, remember Kelly was the first heat of the day. He found those right-handers, or the second heat of the day, and he found those rights over there. And now it seems to be all the focus on the left-handers. So pretty decent barrel there from Michel. I like this turn. Bingo, but that backwash kind of really made that wave breathe up, and it's really tough to come out of that. That angle makes that barrel look a little better, a little claim from Michel. But you can see there's a big old right-hander coming at him right here. So it's always going to be tough to ride out of that thing.
We'll expect a decent number. Michel Bourez, he nabs himself a 4.67. The scale quite low for this heat. With just under 9 minutes to go, Michel leads. Wiggly now looking for a 4.21.
Yeah, and that's a good sign for Wiggly that these lefts are kind of switched on, being that he's a goofy footer. He might have the luxury of reading that wave from a little deeper line. On your forehand, you can get those big pumps and it kind of generate more speed at will.
Conditions are clean. The sun is out. The crowd is huge down here for round 2. Michel Bourez leading heat 8. Wiggly Dantes chasing a 4.21. We'll be back right after this.
Tres.
Welcome back to the Quiksilver Pro, a low-scoring heat unfolding in round 2 here. Michel Bourez has a narrow lead over Wiggly Dantes. Both have had some pretty decent barrels, but the judges wanting to see these two competitors get a little deeper in the tube. 7 minutes to go, and Wiggly is chasing a 4.21 to get himself into the lead. Ronnie Blakey joined by Ross Williams. And Ross, I just love what France offers. Big barrels one day, really fun little reform shore breaks the next. We do have some quality sandbars around, but the condition of those banks on the inside is, there's going to be a big question mark over the quality of those banks after this big swell.
That's true. So the bank that we're right in front of, the main site, was really nice. On a small day before we got this competition underway, it was only knee high, but it was a really defined A-frame kind of sandbar in front. So hopefully that thing will hold up with all the energy that's been unloaded on that sandbar in the last 48 hours.
Still some good sized set waves rolling through. Wiggly Dantes and Michel Bourez, they've been just shadowing each other around this lineup, not giving each other any room. Obviously very wary of each other and have a lot of respect for one another's talent. Michel Bourez, he's coming off the back of his best ever finish. Last season got to 5th place. He had a couple of CT victories, and at one point people were talking world title. He slipped away a little bit towards the back end of the season. This year was a bit of a shocking start for Michel. A couple of second round exits in the first 2 contests. He bounced back at Margaret River, an event he won last year with a quarter final. And here he is at the Quiksilver Pro France, taking off on a wave that's going to run away from him. But Michel's year really fell apart when after Margaret River, he was at home, tapped into a big swell at Chopu.
Yeah, it was... I remember reading an interview after he got injured there in that session. He was saying, you know what, I wanted to kind of push myself and go on maybe one of the biggest waves I've ever turned around on at Chopu, and he did. Unfortunately, he packed it. He pulled into the barrel nicely, but he ate it, and he was really unfortunate because he hit the reef and gashed his hand open, had to have reconstructive surgery. So really unlucky because 9 out of 10 times when you pull into a big wave at Chopu, you just kind of get spit up out the back, but you end up tagging the reef.
He broke his hand pretty badly, but he's been performing pretty well. He returned to Jeffreys Bay, had a 9th, a couple of early round exits since then. Here's his history at the Quiksilver Pro France. He's had a couple of quarterfinal finishes. Never been eliminated here in the second round. I remember seeing him early on as a wildcard in 2007. Got a 9th place finish. Actually beat B. Durbridge in the contest that year. and sort of really put his name up in lights with some strong performances as a wild card. He's had a great career since then. A couple of top 10 finishes.
And he surfs really good in Hawaii. He's won the event there at Haleiwa before, and some amazing surf there. You know, so he's well-rounded. It's pretty cool that, you know, you mentioned he broke through last year and got those wins. He won in West Oz, which is just, you know, it's all kinds of different conditions, and then he won it in Rio, which is you know, just beach break fest. So pretty amazing that such a powerhouse surfer can get it done in different types of conditions.
3.5 minutes remaining. Priority sits with the Brazilian. Wiggly looking for a 4.21. Michel Bourez, though, without priority, keeping busy on the inside. You don't often see surfers punch through the curtain here in France, Ross. Why is that?
I think, you know, this wave, once it unloads and breaks, it's on really shallow sandbar. And the shallower it is, where a wave breaks, the more power it has. It really explodes. And with that much power exploding around you, it's hard to kind of break through. There's no friffly lip line to kind of punch through. It's really thick. So once you touch that lip line, it basically, you know, it'll kick you off your board.
Well, Wiggly is racing towards the corner of this wave. And he's going to have a swing using priority. He grabs the rail. Stylish entry. And he is deep in the pit. And the wave spits. Can Wiggly find his way through? What went wrong inside that barrel? It looked like he had done everything right from the outset. The takeoff was great.
Man.
Fast track speed line into the tube, but just didn't find his way through it.
Yeah, he was pretty casual. He even stalled a bit at the takeoff. So he was trying to max it out, get really deep, but he just got a little too deep. And what happens when you get back there that far in the barrel, the whitewash, the foam ball fills up, and then you start drifting and you lose all that momentum.
Well, that might have cost him the heat because he only needed a 4.21. He could have really put some pressure on Michel. We're going to have a look at that wave in a moment. But Wiggly just, it looked perfect, the entry.
It really did. Now I'd actually like to see the angle looking into it. Let's see what happened here. This is sort of from the front on. There he adjusted right away. He knew he was pretty deep. You saw him shuffle his feet forward. And right there, just a touch of backwash too that made that wave breathe inside the barrel. Once that lip touches you on the shoulder, this is the angle I wanted to see. Right here, he shifts his weight forward. He's trying to get all that momentum down towards the channel. But that wave had a weird wonk on it, didn't it, Ronnie? So as that barrel kind of shifted up and down, for sure he touched the barrel. And once you touch the lip line inside a barrel like this, and we just talked about it at beach breaks, it's so powerful. It just pushes.
Well, lost opportunity there for Wiggly Dantes. He puts a 1.93 on the board. It doesn't go into his top two, so the requirement remains the same, a 4.21 needed to get ahead of Michel Bourez with just over 1 minute remaining. The bad news for Wiggly is Michel is now going to be holding priority. Don't be surprised if he doesn't just chase Wiggly down in this lineup. Looks like he's making a move now.
That's brutal because he was inches away from getting a 9-point ride. If he just kept his shoulders clean and didn't let that barrel touch him, if he would have been able to stay clean inside that barrel and dry, he would have popped out.
Looked like he was on his way to a massive number there. It might have been the wave of the day. But here is Wiggly now, just taking off, hoping for this wave to do something. At least offer a few sections that he can tap into. He's after a 4.21. And I don't think it's going to matter what he does on this wave. You've got to think back to his 3.47, which was amazing. He surfed that wave very well, but again, he had a left that was probably an 8-foot wave, and he got barreled on it and got a 3.47. So yeah, I don't know if that's going to be the number.
For sure. Yeah, the scale is set really low in his heat. Nice clean snap there to finish that reform, but it's not going to be enough.
Well, that is a wave right on the buzzer there for Wiggly's scores, starting to drop on through.
Well, Michel Bourez, he is anxiously waiting to hear what Wiggly's last ride comes through at. It's a 2.5, not enough. He needed a 4.21, and the Tahitian is going to be moving on to round 3 with a 4.67 and a 3. Not a massive heat score total, but he's done enough to stay alive in the draw here at the Quiksilver Pro. More action to come in just a moment. Joel Parkinson and Keanu Asing hitting the lineup.
troisième tour. Nous sommes ravis pour Michel. J'espère que vous allez lui faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements. Il est passé par un petit sport, mais il est passé. Il a fallu attendre le dernier moment, la dernière vague de Wiggly Dantes, qui n'a pas suffi pour pouvoir repasser en tête. Un grand bravo pour Polynésien, Australien Michel Bourez. All right, so coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, it is Joe Parkinson taking on Asing. Joe Parkinson, Asing, we're moments away. There we go. We're counting this one down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the beginning of heat number 9, folks. Heat number 9 of round 2. In the red jersey, it is Joel Parkinson from Australia taking on the young Hawaiian, the rookie, Asing. He's scratching into this first wave. Here he is, the young Hawaiian natural footer, hard off the bottom. Big turn off the top there. Throwing plenty of spray. Big smack again in the pocket for Asing. And looks a little bit swallowed up on the inside, but two great maneuvers to push things off. The young Hawaiian.
Welcome back to the Quik Pro. This is Stop 9 on the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. Joel Parkinson is hitting the lineup up against Asing, who's been a bit of a nemesis for Parko this year. This is Heat 9 of round 2. And the Australian veteran, 2012 world champ, fighting it out against one of the impressive rookies on the CT this year, Keanu. Even though he's in search of a big result to keep a spot on the CT for 2016. He's had some good performances, and Joel knows all too well what he's capable of. He beat Joel over in Brazil.
Yeah, he did. Asing also beat Gabriel Medina in that event with a big old alley-oop. But while we were away, here is the young Hawaiian, Asing. One thing I like about his surfing, he really delivers a smooth, clean wrap on an open face. He's got really good timing. He's consistent. He's a very steady surfer. Rarely does Keanu fall, so he'll post a few numbers.
Built like a beer fridge. He has a lot of power, but plenty of style too. I love his flow. He never looks too rushed. He reads a wave beautifully. You can see there, great timing. And he just explodes when he hits the lip. A decent score of 6.67 to get started. And that's pretty impressive considering he didn't get barreled on that wave.
Yeah, so, a new heat, a new scale. Seems like it's set quite a bit higher, and here he goes.
Taking off again. This time, he's looking for the tube. He finds a bit of cover, a tricky wave. It kind of wanted to clamp on him. He didn't find the exit. Joel Parkinson takes off. And we spoke about it in that last heat. It's so hard to push through that curtain here. A lot of water moving. Even Joel Parkinson, who's a bit of a Houdini when it comes to escaping barrels like that, couldn't hang on.
Yeah, he was trying to just slip through the curtain there, and again, the wave won the battle. So between the backwash and how powerful the wave is, it's really tough to hang on.
Parko trying to turn around his worst ever year on the championship tour. He's really been missing from the highlight reel, Joel. Typically you can kind of count on him for a number of 10-point rides throughout a CT season. I'd love to know just how many 10-point rides he's had in his career. We know he's had a couple of perfect heats.
He really seemed to find some spark at lowers. The last event in California, Joel was surfing arguably the best he's surfed all year. He looked really fresh. He's always smooth, always powerful and carvy, but he was flying his fins like nobody's business. Really free with his tail slides. So we thought, okay, Joel finally found that magic.
He's been pretty confident too, despite the fact that it's his worst CT year. Up until probably a couple of events ago, he was kind of still backing himself to get back into title contention. Obviously, a couple more poor results since then has meant that he's slipped a little further down the ratings. He finds himself in a group of surfers, really veterans on the championship tour, in the teens there. Asing currently outside the requalification mark in 24th position. The 22-year-old wants to jump a couple of spots, and this heat is very important for him.
Yeah, it is. And Keanu hasn't really gotten many great results on a QS either. So he's got he's got some pressure on his shoulders. He needs to get it done. He's so close. Top 22 is the cutoff line for the CT at the end of the year. So he's right there.
Well, this is the perfect heat for Keanu to employ some of his favourite mantras. Hard over height. He's going to have to really rely on that to overcome Joel Parkinson. Joel, one of the bigger guys on tour, 6'0", about 82 kilos. A solid unit with some big turns. Keanu, more of a power nugget with plenty of flow. He finds a nice little tube here on his third wave. Maintains good control through a lumpy face. And this wave's lining up pretty well through the inside too. So Keanu's getting the opportunity to rack up a couple more numbers here on the inside. Drives off the bottom. Gets on the back foot. Some of that clean style and flow on display that we spoke about earlier. And Asing finishes right up on the shore break to an appreciative French crowd.
One thing I like about Keanu Asing, the way he surfs heats, he's very switched on. He's not chill. He doesn't relax. He's not overly patient. He likes to catch a lot of waves, and that seems to help him, especially on a day like today where the waves aren't obvious. A lot of times you can get into the right rhythm with the ocean if you keep catching waves. So kind of a sneaky one. See, this is a smaller wave, so if you're sitting out there right now, you might not think that this is worth your time, but watch all the effort that Keanu puts in. Nice little tube, sweeping cutback, and I like the fact that he kind of waited for this wave to reform, because you never know. That extra half a point, maybe even a whole point, could make the difference at the end of the day. Watch this last maneuver. Just one more snap there before he finishes up. So again, the effort that Keanu puts forward in every heat, it can be appreciated. He's definitely not a lazy surfer. He stays super active.
One of the things that I've really noticed from Keanu this year is he has been the benefactor of the company that he keeps. It seems like when the QS surfers arrive to the championship tour, their skill level, their performance level, it goes up a notch. And Keanu, just being around the world's best, has really lifted this season. Even though he's outside the requalification mark at this point, he's surfing so well. A lot better than he was as a QS campaigner.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and he stated that, didn't he, at the very first event on the Gold Coast. He said, wow, I'm psyched to be with the best surfers in the world. I'm just trying to soak it in. And he's a great student. He really is. Of course he's humble, but he's been, compiling all that information so that he can beat the best.
And he's keeping busy with that priority here. A lot of foam on the face of this wave. It's going to be hard to surf. Keanu elects to kick out with just over 22 minutes to go. He's got a pretty decent lead over Joel Parkinson now, a 6.67 on his first wave. He's just racked up a 4.5. That extra effort, taking that wave through to the inside and just linking a number of moves together. Saw him put together a pretty decent backup score.
So 6.67, much better than that 4.5. Just the two maneuvers on the left, where he had a handful of maneuvers on the right. So the judges want to see clean water. They want to see a big set wave with major moves. I mean, that's the reason why they gave him that extra couple of points. It's got the jump on Joel. It's not much, but Joel's going to be looking inside. He's, they can see how busy Keanu is.
Joel will just be thinking, oh no, not again.
Twice this year.
Brazil all over. Well, 3 times if you include a round 1 heat that they had at Jeffreys Bay, where Keanu got the jump on Joel there. That is super impressive. Usually, I don't really like putting too much weight into those 3-man heats. They're non-elimination. Surfers can get caught on the wrong side of priority when they're chasing a wave in the dying stages. For example, a surfer in third spot can hold priority when the guy in second actually needs a score and wants to get that set wave. So, I don't really pay too much mind to that kind of history, but to get a win over Joel Parkinson at Jeffreys whether it's a 3-man heat, a 2-man heat, or an 8-man heat, is huge.
Yeah, J-Bay, that is Joel Parkinson's territory. He pretty much owns that spot. So Keanu, a couple of feathers in his cap. And again, I like that he's staying busy in his heat. It's paying off for him so far, but Joel is lurking.
Well, just over 20 minutes to go. Let's see if Joel Parkinson can get himself into this heat. And while we wait for the set waves to roll on in, let's hear from Rosie Hodge and Michelle Bourez, who won the last heat.
Thank you so much. Well, Michelle Bourez, sitting on that bubble of qualification in 25th spot, in that round number 2, it's so nerve-wracking. How important was it for you to advance in that one, especially over a tough competitor like Wiggly Dantes?
It's always hard to surf against him because obviously he was trying to get the priority the whole time, even when he had priority, so he was just sitting on me the whole time. So it's kind of annoying, but that was his plan and didn't work, I feel like the deal about priority is just to have some space and so you have time to find the right one, and that's the whole point of it, and he didn't do that, so that's how I make it.
Well, escaping that round number 2 and into round 3, like I mentioned, so important for qualification. Obviously, a lot of people putting their hands up for the injury wild card. Is that factoring into your performances at all, or are you just trying to take it, event at event and see how you end up at the end of the year?
Yeah, there's still 3 comps to go, and I'm still in this one, so I'm just focusing on what's going on right now, and especially tomorrow, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a tough hit. And then, I'm just going to see, and I always try my best, and I hope this year I'll make it without getting an injury walkout or something. I just want to stay on the tour, and hopefully next year will be better.
Well, Michelle, we can't wait to see you in round 3 and really see you flare up. So back to you, boys.
Thank you, Rosie. Michelle Bourez is powering on through to round 3. A tough heat and a solid performance. Almost lost it to Wiggly there, who had a chance in the dying stages, Ross, to move on through with a big backhand barrel, but wasn't able to find the exit.
And you could tell that he was kind of like, he felt good about that win because they were all tangled up, weren't they? The first 10 minutes, they were right in each other's business, so that felt good.
Okay, well, back to live action now, and Joel Parkinson, he climbs up into the pocket and throws everything into that turn. Just over 18 minutes to go, and he falls, and he is falling behind here. Asing has established a decent lead. Joel just wanted to get a wriggle on in this heat and get something on the board.
Yeah, and that's unlike Joel to find, that wave stayed open. There was scoring potential there, and he fell. That's not the Joel that we're used to seeing. That could be the difference why he's rated so low this year. Those little mini mistakes, they add up. And Asing, I know he's a rookie, but he's clever. He'll pounce on this opportunity.
Joel Parkinson, he surfed 27 Championship Tour finals. He's had 12 victories, but like Kelly Slater, hasn't had a win since 2013. That was over in Bali, where he got the jump on Michelle Bourez in the final there. So Parko, even though he is one of the most winning surfers, it's been a long time since he's hoisted a trophy.
And, Parko, he might be picking up on the fact that the tide right now, Ronnie, I think it's coming up quite a bit. It seems like we're in a transitional period with the waves right now and the conditions. I'm curious to see if the surfers, especially in the next heat even, if they start to focus maybe down the beach a bit.
Well, let's have a look back at the event in Brazil where Asing got the jump on Joel Parkinson. Put that backhand to good use. You can see just how stylish and powerful and damaging that backhand can be.
Yeah, really tough heat. The conditions were a mini version of what we're seeing right now. Really shifty, up and down. And Keanu, again, that's his MO. He likes to stay busy, catch a lot of waves, keep those scores flowing. Joel tucking into a barrel right there. That was, I think, his best wave in this heat. Always a smooth cat, but, he needed the backup score, and he couldn't find it against Asing.
Keanu's busy approach paid off big time. And at the moment, it's paying off again. And you can see how excited Keanu was. It's so hard to get a win over these veterans in these earlier rounds. They rarely make mistakes. And they also surf better than just about anyone in the world.
Yeah, Keanu was the giant killer in that event. He took down Joel and Gabriel Medina. He was psyched. He was definitely feeling it. So, again, because he's beat Joel a couple times in this year on tour. I know. It's a big psychology game, isn't it? If you have that confidence and you've done it before, you can do it again.
Who was your kryptonite? Who was the one competitor that just used to rattle you?
I used to lose a lot to Shea Lopez. Renan Rocha from Brazil used to get me all the time. And I'll be honest, when I went up against those guys, I was confident. I was like, okay, I think I'm going to get this heat, and they would just take me down. Everyone has their kryptonite. I think those guys were mine.
Would you go into those heats trying to reset and say, hey, it was lucky last time, and then it'd start sort of filling in halfway through the clash?
You try to not think about it, and what ends up happening is you think about it by trying to not think about it. It's the worst thing ever. And then you start surfing handcuffed.
Do you think Joel's starting to think about it out there at the moment, 15 minutes to go, chasing a 9.24?
You pointed out, Ronnie, for someone who's had kind of a shocker year, he seems to have kind of hold on to his confidence. So I don't think so, not just yet. But, if Keanu gets the win here, I don't think he has a choice.
Well, Joel Parkinson, he's chasing a 9.24, but at the moment he's got plenty of time. He can still get back in this heat with 2 rides. He doesn't necessarily need to go near perfect. Keanu Asing, he's got a decent lead, but it's made up of 2 pretty average rides, a 6.67 and a 4.5. Keep in mind the 6.67 came without Keanu getting barreled, so if Joel can get himself a big pit, I think the judges would probably have to reward him with an excellent score.
And they have shifted down quite a bit. Keanu Asing now is just barely north of the main site, so these guys are picking up on the fact that the water's filling up, the tide's coming in.
Keanu's got himself in a position to requalify. Even though he's just outside the bubble, he's in striking distance. His best results, a couple of ninth place finishes in Brazil and at Jeffreys Bay. Joel Parkinson, despite the fact that he's holding on to 3/13ths this season, he's also got a couple of quarterfinal finishes, which has him in 14th spot. And you can see that Joel's got a great opportunity here to make some ground on the Jeep leaderboard with Wiggly Dantes and Taj Burrow out of the draw here at the Quicksilver Pro.
Yeah, big bump between him and the top 10. But the next graphic should be pretty telling for Keanu Asing. Sebastian Zietz and Adam Melling are tied for 22, and that's the cutoff line. So he is just right, pretty much one spot underneath them. So this is a huge heat for him. He really, it's a big difference between losing in this round and the next round. You get 1,750 points if you make this one more heat. If you lose in this round, you only get 500 points. It's brutal for those guys trying to make the top 22.
500 points, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's a slap on the wrist for sure.
When you think about it, just a couple of events ago, we had surfers who had competed as wildcards in the event, sitting higher than guys that had competed in every contest, Ross.
Yeah, before there was a 2-tier system, it used to be a seeding list that would have guys seeded in the 3rd round, so they wouldn't even show up to the contest the first couple of days it ran.
Well, just over 12 minutes ago, Keanu Asing still hanging on to the lead here. Joel Parkinson is after a 9.24 to take the #1 position away from Keanu. Let's get caught up on what's unfolded today here. Round 2 action well and truly underway. Pete Mellon and Strider Wozalewski are on the set.
Very much, and yes, let's take you through the last few heats here, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 actually, but 5 was one of those walkthrough heats, Strider, where we weren't able to have anybody surf. Italo Ferreira got through a walkthrough from Alejo's injury.
Yeah, unfortunately, Alejo having to bow out of the event with that knee injury. We heard Ross talking about the backwash, the barrel, the compression. It was an unfortunate situation for him, but moving on into these heats, wow. Jeremy Flores got it going, falling out of the sky, found himself one good wave like he was talking about in his heat. But, it was interesting out there. It was really hard. There's waves everywhere, so it's really hard to know where to be out there.
Well, he had the 8.23, backed it up with a 2.33, and took the win over Dusty Payne, who had a bit of a shocker there, not even scoring over a point, a 0.83 and a 0.50. Dusty's going to have to rekindle here. Sounds like he's heading back to California. That disc, that back in his disc in his back, having a rough go. Now we have heat number 6, was Nat Young up against Ricardo Christie.
Yeah, and you know what? Nat Young took to the backside, couple big hacks right there, looking good, standing on his board. He said when he came in, he couldn't hear anything in the water, which he came into the beach. I saw him give a thumbs up, thumbs down to the coaches, and they were like, thumbs up, and he was like, the sigh of relief in his face. It was awesome. Ricardo, he had an 8-point ride in that heat. It was, not a bad heat. He just could not find the backup. Nat holding on off the bottom right there. That was crazy. Some skills to pay the bills coming through that, and kind of holding on, just like some beach breaks in back home, but in his Northern California.
Yeah, 7.33 and a 5.33 gets Nat Young through that one. Then we have Josh Kerr up against Glenn Hall.
Josh Kerr just grabbed the wall. It just switched to some nice looking lefts in the beginning, and then he backed it up with the little right head dip there, throwing a little carve on the face. Looks like he's got a little bit more board under his feet too, which I like. Glenn Hall out on the face, throwing down some nice hacks right there. But we heard Glenn talk about the fact that he's not really in it all the way with the headspace. So kind of alluding to maybe walking away from the tour and maybe not being away from it completely, but being there to help other people, and maybe that's the next leg of his tour.
So Josh Kerr with a 5.67 and a 3.53, single digits, able to win that heat number 7. So heat number 8, Michel Bourez and Wiggly Dantes.
It was interesting in the post heat for this heat. Wiggly got a nice little barrel right there, not really deep, so that's why he didn't probably wouldn't have got the big score that you would think. But Michel coming away in the end, finding a nice little nugget. To hear Michel's thoughts after this heat in the post heat about how he was sitting on him and there was tactics happening in the water. Both these guys, they want to win, and it just shows that the frustrations right there in Wiggly's face in the water. It means so much to them, and to have Italo walk through that heat and not have to battle, and for Wiggly trying to get that Rookie of the Year spot, he's not happy.
Yeah, well, Michel Bourez gets through that one, another low-scoring affair, but then we have the screws being tightening by Keanu Asing, guys. Joel Parkinson, they have the nemesis, Keanu Asing. Is there any way that Joel can get back in this one?
Well, he's not chasing a huge 2-wave total at this point, Pete. He can do it with one wave. He needs a 9.24, but if you split up the requirement, Joel can get the job done with a couple of average rides here. Just over 8.5 minutes to go. I'm not sure though. Haven't seen anything positive from Joel. We know it's a tricky lineup at the moment, but he's fallen on a couple of waves.
Every once in a while, I'll just kind of stick my head out the window here and trying to scan up and down the beach to see if there's something that's anything more available, but it's pretty slim out there. And Joel, he's just out there waiting. He's been very patient, selective. Keanu's been more busy, and it's paid off for him.
Well, maybe Keanu just identifying that the barrels were slowing up a little bit and getting to work with some solid turns.
Yeah, I love those backhand snaps for the 6.67, and who would have thought, that's more than a keeper at this point. So definitely time not on Joel's side, but you mentioned it, Ronnie. He's got so much firepower. If he gets himself one clean wall and swoops into a couple of powerful turns, he can get an excellent score.
What about Pete Mennel stepping up the fashion stakes at the Quicksilver Pro this year?
Very cool. And, he's backing up with the he's got the nice scarf there, which looks very dapper, but he's got the fanny pack to kind of even it out. Nerdy / cool French guy.
Hey, it could work. It could take off. I'm not buying it at this point, but it could take off.
1 through 10. I'm going 7.23.
We love it. Pete Mennel, always living on the edge. Well, just over 7 minutes remaining in this heat, and Joel Parkinson is still after that 9.24. Keanu Asing, you could do a number on Joel again here.
If I'm Keanu, with second priority right now, he should keep busy and try and get rid of that 4.5. Put Joel in combo land. Really force the issue with this time. Right now, it's not on Joel's side.
Well, Keanu's going to get an opportunity at some point because Joel hasn't really got a decent wave yet. So if Joel takes a ride, Keanu's going to get that priority, and then he can really start thinking about locking into a decent set wave. The 6.67, it could be the highest scoring wave of the heat, but it also could provide a great backup score if Keanu can get himself barreled.
It's changed so much in the last 40 minutes. It looks like a total different surf spot out there, so pretty interesting. We talked about it a lot the last couple of days. You got to be flexible here in France with these big tides. It's 14 feet of tides.
I love this round. I mean, I feel bad for guys who get eliminated and take home a 25th. You've travelled all this way, 2 days of competition, and you bundled out the event. You only get 500 points. But as a spectator, I just love the pressure that this round brings. At the moment, the pressure is right on Joel Parkinson. And Keanu Asing, well, it's been a composed performance when you think about where he's sitting on the ratings and the fact that there's so much on the line for Keanu. Desperate to shore up a place on the tour. He's not ready to step back onto the QS. 5.5 minutes to go. Let's hear from Wiggly Dantes. A disappointing result for him, bowing out of the contest in that last heat. He's with Rosie Hodge.
That's right, coming up against a worthy opponent in Michelle Bourez. Obviously, talking about a little bit of tactics, just sitting on Michelle quite a bit. We saw that happen at Trestles with Adriana too. Does that factor into your game plan, just to apply the pressure to your competitor?
No, I think the wave's like pumping, but at the same time it's a little bit difficult. I tried to get a left and tried to get some barrels, but the wave's not that hard. I love surfing here, but sometimes it's pretty hard, and I don't have the good luck. I tried to get 2 good barrels, but it's like I got a little barrel in the turn, and I got 2.9, and I don't know, like sometimes the condition's pretty hard, but I'm still happy. I just Portugal's next. I just surfing good. I have a good time, and I just want to go there and make a good result.
And then obviously we are keeping a close eye on the rookie race for 2015. Both yourself and Italo, beautiful additions to the tour. With Italo getting that walkthrough this morning, is that factoring in at all and getting you fired up even more for Peniche and the end part of the season?
No, for me, I just think I just want to go and surf. For me, it's going to change, I think, everything in Hawaii, because Pipeline for me is like pretty special, and I want to do good there, and Peniche too, but I don't think about the rookie. I just want to make a good results, and let's, step by step, and let's, make a good result. And if it be a hook off the year, it's going to be amazing, but if not, I just want to get good barrels in Pipeline in Portugal and have fun.
All right, well, we look forward to that. Going to enjoy your time in France. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Rosie. Wiggly Dantes, good enough to have a chat to us. He's out of the contest and potentially will be dropping down the ratings. Well, there's a pretty good chance of that. There's quite a few surfers just behind him who are still alive in the draw here. 3.5 minutes to go, and still Joel Parkinson hasn't put a decent number on the board. Keanu Asing out in front. And for quite some time, Joel's had the opportunity to perhaps get 2 scoring rides and get himself the lead. Now it's looking more like he's going to need a near-perfect wave to snatch the win from Keanu.
He's really losing the luxury of climbing back into this heat with a pair of waves. It's going to come down to that Hail Mary. Unfortunate because it's a giant score, so needing a 9.24 out here, that means he needs to look for a big old teepee, a nice hollow wave, and get absolutely pitted.
Now, the other thing working against Joel is the fact that Keanu, he has priority. So he's going to use that wisely, I'm sure. Well, each season the surfers, Ross, generally talk about the natural-footed world title, and then there's usually a goofy-footed world title. Gabriel claimed both. Well, claimed the world title, and he's a goofy footer last year. That had been a while since a goofy footer had won a world title, but we've got Joel Parkinson having a look at this one. Just a little bit too late, but I was just looking at all those names.
A lot. Really paid off for Keanu Asing. Smart surfer. He always has he stays busy, and that definitely paid off for him.
On the Jeep.
Conditions are still firing here for round 2 action at the Quicksilver Pro. You just got to be lucky to be in the right spot at the right time. It's sometimes a difference of just one make here on a tube ride at Hossegor to move on into round 3. We've lost some big names of the sport today. Parkinson taken out of the contest with a 2.86 total. That's how hard it is to find the gems out there. And Asing takes advantage of another big upset this year. It's been interesting, Potts. Every time you see a set pouring, you can't really know right away if that's going to be the wave of the heat or not. A lot of closeouts, a lot of beatings, a lot of surprises for the results.
Yeah, a lot of water moving around as well. You know, that's the tricky part. That tide is coming in very quickly, Joe. So conditions are on the move right now. A little bit of wind coming in as well, a little bit more texture on the water going the opposite direction. So things are not going to get any easier as this afternoon progresses. These good ones are becoming very, very rare and few and far between, but they're still out there. So we are full steam ahead. Massive upset in that last heat. Asing again takes down Joel Parkinson. Just got busy early, and I think that was the difference.
He got to feature that secret weapon of a backhand that he has. Yep. He's been doing that since he was a little grommet. He had so much more power than the kids his age when he was in the mini grom division. Always had that crazy backhand whip. Started quick. Second time he's gotten Parco out of an event this year.
Yeah, exactly right. And not a huge two-wave total either. Joel had plenty of time to come back, but just could not find one. We talk about that water coming in, so the bank is changing, shifting. I think Joel was looking for the barrels. There wasn't any on offer, so at some stage you've got to really sort of click into plan B, go to maneuvers. That's what Keanu did and got the win.
Been really enjoying Asing's post-heat interviews all year. I think sometimes it almost feels like a surfer's written their post-heat interview the night before their matchup. Not with Keanu. He goes in and he tells you exactly what happened. If he's disappointed, he'll let you know. If he looks like he underperformed, or remember it lowers, he was talking about how certain people might not like the way he approaches it. He let us know about that, and he'll just start from scratch, work really hard on his goal, and I think that's why he's had some big moments this season.
You know, he wears his heart on his sleeve. You know exactly how he's feeling and what's going on in his world, but he's working this game out. Still a few events left on tour. He finds himself into round 3 and a massive scalp, Joel Parkinson. So that's going to give him a bit of confidence, Joe.
Well, this heat's an interesting one. You have Kai Otton, rated 15th in the world. He had a pretty solid streak this season, 3 straight quarterfinals. Did well at Cloudbreak, Jeffreys Bay, and also in Tahiti. A solid momentum streak for him to be a little bit safer towards the back end of the year for requalification.
Yeah, it's quarterfinals are better, isn't it? I mean, you look at the points here in round 2, 500 points. That's nothing. I mean, that's not going to do anything for you, whether you're going for a world title, top 5, top 10, or even trying to requalify. So this is one of those rounds that are very, very dangerous for these guys.
Having a look now, Melling from Lennox Head looks to stall for the tube. Now driving down the line. A clean in and out barrel off the top whip. And now pulling into the end section, he'll kick out of that one. That's the best score so far. Both of them had a look at a wave before that.
Well, Joel would have paid good money for that.
That's right.
About 5 more minutes in Joel's heat and he would have got that wave, but not to be. And that's the nature of the beast here when it's talk about professional surfing. You've got 30 minutes to perform. If those waves don't come through, there's not much you can do. Here we go. Adam Melling stalls on the takeoff. Now he pumps down the line. Beautiful positioning. Not too deep right there, but I like this right here. Bang. Nice commitment there from Adam Melling. Finishes off, as you said, Joe, the best wave of the heat so far.
It's been fun watching Melling approach serious waves of consequence the last couple of years, as he just joined the 30 and over club, ranked 22 in the world, which is a fairly consistent position that he's been in. As we know, he's done a lot of events over the years. This is his 16th event of the season in 2015. Last couple of years, he's right about 18 events, sometimes even getting up to 20 plus events. Kai Otton looks to the left now, squares up, lip hits him in the back, and that'll take him down. So we see him bottom turn, trying to get barreled, and he'll have another incomplete score to kick off this matchup.
Well, you know Kai's going to be on the ugly ones, you know, those ones that no one wants, those ones that are virtually unmakeable. He tends to swing on those ones, throw caution to the wind and somehow try and manufacture something crazy. That's what he does. That's why it's so exciting watching this guy. Look at this thing right here, just a little bit slow off the bottom there, and maybe just didn't duck enough, but that wave was definitely not a friendly one. You need those big wide open ones, and with that tide coming in, Joe, we're gonna see these waves sort of get that little bit of a wobble, and it'll slap you on the back, which that one did. So you've got to be very careful. This is around about the same time yesterday as Alejo Muniz injured himself, so got to be careful.
That's right, so advantage Melling to start off this matchup now. Let's hear from Keanu Asing, who's with Peter Mel.
Keanu, surf against Joel now. This is your third time you've beat him. You know, do you draw off those last past performances and have confidence from it?
You know, yeah, definitely. I you know, this is the third time I'm surfing against him, and third time I beat him. I feel it's like a confidence booster, you know, just coming up against him. I know I got to bring the best out of myself, and you know, surfing against the champ, you got to think like a champ, and it's really tough, you know. But that heat, I kind of like I had a game plan and I stuck to it. My friend was telling me just to keep watching for like an hour before and stick to your guns, and I was just waiting for Joel just to stand in a perfect pin and get a perfect 10. I was just waiting for that, and I was been kicking myself, but you know, luckily the tides kind of filled in. It got kind of weird, and you know, I was lucky enough to come through that heat, and you know, it was pretty tricky, but it just happens like that.
I got to ask you, you know, you didn't do all that well on the qualifying series, knowing full well this is your way to get back on tour. You're sitting just outside of that cut line. Are you feeling that pressure?
You know, the pressure's there, but I don't really think about it. It's, you know, it's however you take the pressure. You know, I feel like the things that I've learned on this tour is more valuable, and I can take it to the next events and have more confidence going into these next events, such as this event in Portugal, Pipe. I feel more comfortable surfing in this. You know, it's kind of like riding in first class and you got to go back to economy class. So it's kind of, you know, it's a bit tricky, but I feel, you know, it's kind of weird. I didn't really think I would feel this comfortable surfing on this level with these type of guys, and I'm starting to learn different new things about myself and the way I compete, and you know, I feel confident in these events.
Hashtag heart before height.
That's right, Pete. Kid's got a lot of heart. Keanu Asing always has had that approach in every matchup that he's involved in. Pete putting him on the spot, talking about feeling the pressure, and responds with just moving on to the next one, handling the pressure in different ways. And he's had to take some hard knocks along the way. Remember going back to getting sent out at the box, taking some beatings, coming in with a low score line, and having to pick himself back up, going to the next event. Then he started really finding success. He took down some of the favorites in Rio, not just guys like Parco, but the hometown favorites. A lot of big names like Gabriel Medina, who was coming in with being a heavy favorite. Then he did a full rotation alley-oop, brought that out, and kind of stole the show.
That he did. You know, just proved that, you know, he's got a bag of tricks. He's not always prepared to show them, but when he needs to, he's got them. So, you know, Keanu Asing, I like the analogy of first class as opposed to economy. This is definitely first class here. I mean, you know, the Dream Tour, perfect waves, 2 guys in the water, jet ski assist. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. You don't want to go back to that QS, that 4-man heat grind. It's tough.
It sure is. And sometimes it's tough when you have a lot of repeat matchups with one guy that's got your number. Sometimes it's a crazy rivalry. Sometimes it's a good friend. Otton undefeated against Adam Melling in one-on-one competition with 5 straight victories. They go back to their first one-on-one matchup. It was actually in round 2 here in the southwest of France. And Kai started his domination way back when. It's a tough stat sheet to swallow. We always like digging those up, even in the Heritage Series heats, to see who had whose number. We were doing that with you and Kerr, remembering that you had Kerr's number back in the day. Those things you never forget. You can remember key moments on how you lost heats. For this one with Adam and Kai, they like each other. They like hanging out. But how does Adam find a way to beat one of his good friends?
Well, that's the tricky part. You know, I think I've had that very same scenario with Tom Carroll, where I kind of let my guard down every time I had him because we were such good friends. even though I thought I was performing at my best, I wasn't, because I'd sort of dropped that intensity. And I think that can happen without even knowing about it. It's something that subconsciously you do. When I come up against someone like Kerr or someone else as opposed to Tom, I had way more intensity, way more aggression, and approached the heat with a different headspace. And I think as soon as I brought that to the table when I competed against Tom Carroll, that's when I started beating him. So, the little things like that I think Adam's got to do maybe. Adam's such a nice guy, and, he just goes about his business, but that intensity, I think maybe that could be the difference for him.
Well, it's interesting how certain competitors kind of draw a line in the sand of who they hang out with behind the scenes. As we take a look at an entry from Kai Otton on the back end, he'll pull in behind the curtain, trying to make sure that he makes it out. That one's going to clamp down on him once again. So Kai with 3 attempts. And not to make yet, Melling made one with a 6.0 and still holds the lead with 17 minutes on the clock. We mentioned how Melling stays really active in competition, doing multiple events throughout a year. Made a final back in the day against Jordy Smith back in 2010, but he's one of those real likable guys. You think about some of the guys on the lower ranks on who their rivals might be. It's basically the whole tour trying to break through the round 3. It can be a pretty challenging round to make it through.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. You especially when you've got that lower seeding, you always come up against the top guys. Once those top guys get a bit of momentum going, it's hard to stop them. That's the whole luxury of working your way up the rankings. You tend to get lower seeds in those 3rd and 4th rounds, so it gives you not a free pass, but an easier route through to the quarterfinals.
Well, one of the clearest rivalries we talked about in this last decade was the clear one with Andy and Kelly, because there was kind of a line drawn in the sand. You're either in Andy's camp or Kelly's camp. A couple of people kind of danced on the middle of that.
Yeah.
But they weren't hanging out too much, especially when things were getting really heated. That's why it was celebrated in the media and brought out some of the best performances out of both those guys. During Lower's event, we had the Heritage Series with some of your great friends, the guys that came before your era. We kind of got to relive the stories of those early rivalries with MR on the desk, talking about beating Shane Horan so many times with 4 world titles back in the day.
And MR said, if I could have that time back, I probably would have let Shane win one,
Wow.
But, in those moments, in the heat of the moment, he thought that, he wanted as many world titles as possible. At the end of the day, he was kind of, seeing where Shane's at and wishing that Shane got one off him. So, it's in the heat of the battle, it's you go for it. And MR and Shane had the most craziest battles all the way through the year. They would trade off wins, but then once it got to Hawaii, that's when MR shined. He was better in bigger waves. He served Sunset, Haleiwa. He was good at pipeline, so MR just had the nod once it hit Hawaii, and I think he knew that.
It's pretty crazy how each era, sometimes it's just a 2-horse race, sometimes it's multiple guys battling for the same prize. This year we've had such an interesting world title race. So many ups and downs in different scenarios. With Felipe starting off strong, getting some low results. Fanning got knocked out early at West Oz. But now 14:25 to go. Here comes Kai right into the barrel. Perfect entry. Flying out of the first section. Wave spits behind him. And that was the moment he was waiting for. His 4th attempt. Just needed a 5.91. We'll be getting a lead change.
He's back. That's all it takes, one good wave normally means another one's around the corner. Let's have a look. Kai straight into it. So he learned from that first one. Had a little extra section at the end there. He kind of just drifted straight into that there. The one before where he got the wave in the head, he kind of went down to the bottom a bit more and tried to pull up. That one he just slid in nice and perfect. That's going to be a great score from Kai Otton. It's going to better Adam Melling 6.0, and Kai's going to take the lead.
So thinking about numbers for Kai Otton, make your guess. Will it be above a 5.91? Will he have the lead? We'll let you know if you're close right after this break. If you thought Kai Otton would be into the excellent range with that left-hand tube ride, you were right on the money at 8.33 from the panel to get the lead change after a few attempts. Finally got an opening, and now the situation has changed. Adam Melling now needs a 3.61 to answer back. Kind of doesn't sound like much, but the way this round has been going, sometimes a 3.61 can be really hard to come by.
That is a huge score. No, I'm joking. It's not a huge score, but it's going to feel like a huge score. You know, you're scouring the lineup, you're trying to find something to ride, and, you know, I'll tell you, it means he's got to at least get a barrel. He's got to do a couple of big turns, maybe. There's two options. I mean, he can sit and wait and be very patient. Let's have a look at that. See how he slid straight in. There was no bottom turn on that occasion, and it got him in that perfect position. He drove through that next section again, pulls in, and comes out nice and clean. That thing was wide open there for Kai Otton, and a well-deserved 8.33. Two judges went to the 9s for that one. 2 9-point rides, 3 8s. You dropped the high and the low. 8.33. Great score there for Kai Otton.
Solid approach. Famous for his tube riding skills. Remember that wipeout that he had at Cloudbreak this season. He's still in the quarterfinals, but he ended up scorpioning himself, and we're almost worried he was going to miss Jeffreys Bay. Kai's not really one to miss events. You kind of look at certain guys, they have to miss an event here and there. They have reoccurring injuries that come back. Kai's one of the oldest guys on tour. He's sort of like a Taj Burrow. Just his attendance record is insane.
Yeah, I mean, he's a warrior too. He's not scared of taking some beatings. He's not scared of surfing with injuries. You know, some guys are like that. Some guys are tough, built tough, born tough. Kai Otton's one of those guys.
Looking like more waves out the back. Sets have just been pouring in, thumping on this sandbar right out front of our scaffolding. Best vision as we get looking inside the tube. Kind of mind surf and make majority of these rides. Mickey Pecan, former CT competitors, down at the next bank over, just having a field day on his ski, just doing step-offs. I think if you had a ski right now, free surfing, you'd probably be at about 50 barrels by now, Potts.
Yeah, well, I've had 100 barrels of mine surfed. Here goes Kai.
Kai, little top turn carve. A lot of froth on the face. He'll carve through again. He's able to keep his rail engaged. Little 2-turn combination. That'll wipe away a 1.27. Nice strategic move to increase the scoreline on Melling.
Yeah, it's not going to be a huge score, but it's going to better his situation. You know, the good guys do that, Joe. The good guys, you know, they realize their scores, the 2-wave total that they've got going, their second highest scoring ride, just constantly bettering it. You don't want to waste your time and energy. You don't want to waste priority. As we see a tricky little pickup right there for Kai Otton. But yeah, you just want to keep bettering your situation, putting the pressure on your opponent wave after wave.
Such a skillful effort to get back on the sled, pick yourself up, make sure your leash isn't tangled up, and sit back on the sled. So Kai rerouting. Scores will better a 1.27 on a 2-turn combo. As we know, the tides are really extreme when we come to the Quiksilver Pro France. Pete Mel is down on the beach. What's the tide doing for the rest of the day, Peter?
Well, it's on the way up, Joe. About 3:30, we have a 12-foot tide, and you know, you talk about all the water moving. It's not only the reason that this place is really exposed to all the swell, but it is because of those tides. You get such a drastic movement. It creates these really strong currents. It carves out these big, deep channels and creates these banks that are out there. And that's another reason why we see the changing of the banks happen so quickly. You know, literally when you get that much tide surge, it literally will shape a bank over 24 hours, 48 hours. And again, we were looking directly out front here, you know, yesterday morning, and it was peeling barrels. Today, it's a bit of a rip, and we've moved up kind of in the middle. It's actually a different part of the beach that we've ran from the previous day. So it's ultimately, you've got to be able to think on your feet, as Potts would say, and be able to make those moves, you know?
That's right, Pete. Well, when you think about this much swell that we have on hand and with the extreme tides, is there an ideal time of the day where you'd be planning your surf, or is it still a bit of a gamble there?
Well, I mean, you guess, right? Ultimately, you'd like to see the incoming tide generally. You know, you kind of time it in between. You pick 2 or 3 hours where you think that those tides are going to be the best on that certain bank. You know, we're very fortunate that we've got these nice little, I was just hearing the surf coming up under my feet. You know, we've got this nice northeast wind. You know, it's kind of clocked a different direction, but it's staying in a nice steady northeast, which is still offshore. So we like that. But yeah, no, you pick a window of opportunity, and you'll just ride it out, and you got to kind of guess. You know, the educated guesses.
Well,
Pete, my theory really with the beach breaks here is if you're looking at it and it's good, it's too late.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
Things can change. Well, Pete, I travel with you a lot around the world. The beach breaks, you can find banks really easily just by looking at a lineup for a few minutes. What are some of your tips of finding a best sandbar on a big beach like this?
Well, I think more than anything, it's getting out there and scouring and traveling and checking. You got to be able to just go out there and watch. It's not something where you can kind of just gauge a zone. I mean, if you're a local, they'll tell you, hey, by the way, Bourdain's has got a little bank over here, and you start talking to people. But ultimately, it's getting down in the ocean on all different tides, at all different conditions, and taking a search. And that's the fun of this. That's what I love doing. I love coming over the sand dune, and all of a sudden you find this little bank on your own. That's the best thing ever.
And Pete, do you have your fanny pack on?
No, I don't. It's in the site. Thanks, bro.
Yeah,
right?
good. Scarf's looking great.
Thanks.
It was cold this morning. We'll borrow that.
It's still got a little bite to it. I mean, and there's a bit of steez to this. If you guys want to pick one up, you can go to your latest Quicksilver store.
Styling, Pete, styling.
Loving it. Former big wave champ Pete Mel, always giving us the latest on forecasting. He actually got really into forecasting and learning the maps from the late Sean Collins, the founder of Surfline. And he really got passionate about it, looking at maps, and that really helped with his job now, being commissioner of the Big Wave Tour. But now we're looking for him for fashion tips as well.
Very stylish, I must say. But yeah, no, that is. I mean, it is a knack really to look at the weather patterns and maps and forecasts and really predict what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. Obviously, with that Big Wave World Tour, that's a real crucial thing to understand. These guys are chasing big storms around the world.
Yeah, so exciting to get the latest in that. Right now, 5:30 on the clock. Kai Otton taking on Adam Melling. Kai undefeated against Melling with 5 straight victories over one of his good friends. Melling needs a 6.01 to turn this one around. It already has a 6.0. We mentioned how active Melling is in competition. He's been really successful in Europe. He's finaled in the Azores in the past. He got a dream barrel recently surfing in that event a couple of weeks ago. And the one year he did the most amount of events, back in 2012, that was the year that he won the event at Sunset Beach. Got guys like Medina in that final, Sebastian Zietz. Making a move now is Melling, looking for the score. He gets hung up. Incomplete. Now 4:50 remaining.
I think Adam's he's kind of like out of the similar mold to Kai Otton, where he catches some crazy waves. He has some really heavy go-downs. The box at Margaret River, just one that comes into mind real quickly. Took the lip in the head, took probably one of the heaviest wipeouts I think we've ever seen. Kai Otton did one at Cloudbreak. So these guys very similar molds in the sense of when those big, dark, ugly ones come around the corner, they'll go. And sometimes an awkward wipeout will follow.
So true. Also thinking about a heat that he had at the Bonsai Pipeline against Kelly Slater and Dusty Payne. Dusty has a sponsor house right in front of Pipe. Spends a lot of time out there. He's dangerous. Kelly, the best ever at the Pipe Masters with so many wins. Melling all of a sudden rerouted them into round 2. He had an opportunity with priority. Charged, got a crazy backdoor bomb.
Yep.
Starts to show that he definitely is not afraid to turn around and go.
One of the biggest backdoor waves of that event, and Adam Melling just charged it. So, that's kind of the trait you've got to have on the World Tour these days. There's no pulling back. If there's a weakness, you better work on it because it's going to come around the corner when you're going to have to rely on that, whether it's an air, whether it's that late drop into a heavy pit, whether it's backside tube riding technique. It's, no matter what it is, every single aspect of your game, you've got to have it down.
Sometimes there's memorable waves, wipeout at the box. Maybe one of the heaviest wipeouts we had this season. Melling came up. He's like, it's no problem. I didn't even hit the reef. Everyone else wanted to give him a hug as we check out the heat recap of round 2, heat number 10. Longtime friends and rivals in competition. Melling looking for his first win off Kai. Started off with a 6.0. Then Kai got this dream left. An 8.33. Well-deserved.
Kai Otton just comes flying out of that one there. So, great wave there. Waited a long time for it. Paid his dues on that one. Then decided to back it up. Didn't want to waste that good wave. You need to back those good ones up. Kai Otton did exactly that. Threw the tailor right there. Great composure and a great technique there from Kai Otton. A tricky wave to ride. 3.67 to back up that 8.33. Still, the door is kind of open for Adam Melling, who's only looking for a 6.01, Joe. So this heat is not over yet. 2.5 to go. Adam Melling out the back again, and that's the beauty of jet ski assist. you can turn a heat around really quick.
I'd love to have a GoPro on Kai's board at all times in competition. He's so animated.
Be underwater most of the time.
When you're just splashing the water, getting himself fired up. And he's always talking a little bit as well. I remember he was mic'd up a few years back in a QS at Lowers, and it was so entertaining to hear how he was pushing himself there in the heat of battle. It's interesting because surfing can appear to be so lonely, just one-on-one. Sometimes you're out the back by yourself, and sometimes you have to do your own work to psych yourself up.
Well, a lot of the time you're battling yourself too. You know, you're arguing with yourself, complaining to yourself. You know, Kai Otton, I remember last year at Chopu when it was that big, huge, gnarly swell. I mean, he said that one heat he spent more time underwater than he did on top of the water, but just absolutely charging. But, you know, there's that where he's splashing the water. There was an angry splash, and then there was a happy splash right after it. I mean, he's that guy that, you know, he wears his heart on his sleeve as well. He's shows his emotion. He's not scared to show that, and I love it. It's passion.
Remember there's this big press release at the start of his season a few years back when Kai was going through some sponsor changes, just signed up with Channel Island Surfboards, and just credited a new attitude. He said he was getting down easy when he had a bad result, and he turned that around. A couple of years after that, he ended up making it into the top 10 and basically won the Goofy Foot World title. That was the year he won Portugal.
I think you've got to, you know, not learn how to lose, but you've got to deal with it. It's part of professional surfing. You know, you're never going to win every single hit you go in. You're going to lose, you know, and it's just how you pick yourself up and dust yourself off and get back into it. I think if you get angry with yourself and down on yourself, that can steamroll, that can snowball into the next events, and you want to get rid of that as quick as possible. Realize the mistakes you've made, deal with that quickly, and then move on.
Well, remember, Adam Melling looking for his first win off Kai Otton, down to 25 seconds on the clock. Ranked number 22 in the world on the championship tour. A couple of close ties on the ranking. Seabass in that same zone with Melling. But a tough one here as he looks down the stretch of a couple of events left on the CT and a few events left for the QS 10,000s. And looks like Kai's going to keep his streak. 6-0 over Melling, as Otton will move on to round 3.
Wow. Adam Melling started off strong, but as Ricardo Chrissy didn't back that good wave up, so that's what it came down to. Only looking for a 6.01, Joe.
That's right. Big action to come here in round 2. Kai successfully advancing through with now a big heat about to unfold with Matty Wilkinson taking on the Hawaiian Sebastian Zietz here at the Quicksilver Pro. Welcome back to the Quicksilver Pro, stop number 9 on the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. We're into round 2, heat number 11. Got a gigantic setup here down on the beach, VIP areas, a bunch of Jeeps down on hand. Those have been crucial, driving through the sand. We went mobile yesterday down the beach. Now we're enjoying the surf right out front. Sebastian Zietz representing Hawaii, taking on Matty Wilkinson from a place called Copacabana in Australia, right in that same turf in New South Wales of Ace Buchan, Glenn Hall. They're on either side at different venues. Ace from Avoca, Glenn Hall from Yamina. All three Goofy Foot's good friends. Now in Matt's corner officially is Glenn Micro Hall. Will be doing the coaching through this matchup. All the coaching was probably done before this moment, as the seat's already gotten underway, Potts.
Yeah, all the hard work's got to be done, doesn't it? It's preparation goes a long way, especially in places like this. Where the conditions change so quick. You've got to be on the ball. And, obviously Glenn helping out Matty Wilco just get that prep thing happening. Something that he hadn't done in the past, and it's working for him.
As we take a look to see that blue jersey from the Hawaiian, Sebastian Zietz looking for some momentum. Deep off the bottom, wrap to slide. Little high line cutty, and he gets out. So he gets on the board. Here, do you see that number for Wilco? He had a quick 2:17 to get this thing going during the break. Still 26.5 remaining. You've got two of the real entertainers here on tour going head-to-head for just the third time in their career. They're both even. Both have had a win off each other. Completely different acts when it comes to performance. What's your favorite thing to watch about Sebastian Zietz, Potts?
I think just his spontaneity. I think, he's got a bag of tricks like no one else. I think the thing I like about him the most is he catches a lot of waves. So when you're watching Sebastian's heats, he's always up and riding no matter what. Even when he's got priority, he tends not to sit there and wait too long. So he's always catching a lot of waves. Very, very busy during his heats.
Sebastian turns in a 3.33, so just takes the lead. As we see that solid set just running through. It's been non-stop all day long. And then thinking about Matty Wilkinson, watching him for a few years, any key moments in his career popping out for you?
J-Bay last year, I think, to me was one of his standout results. Took down Kelly Slater, made the semi-finals. Once he gets that backhand mojo going, it's almost like rapid fire. He finds a groove, and once he starts unloading those backside turns, he's unstoppable.
See him now, 27, Wilco. Loves having a great time. So does Sebastian Zietz. Kind of like the class clowns of the tour. Always making everybody laugh. Seabass is freestyling, making up his own songs, enjoying karaoke. And Wilco always takes advantage of his time on tour. As we have the Hawaiian making a move. Now Sebastian a little bit behind this one. He'll get out in front. Little layback off the top. He'll find the pocket. But he's over the rest of it there. A quick second scoring ride. And he'll be greeted by a wall of whitewater to deal with. The big topic for Sebastian is just trying to bounce back after a tough move at lower trestles against Michel Bourez. When people were saying maybe that was one of the best performances he's turned in a couple of years, he was surfing that well. And then to unfortunately take off, thinking he had priority after the horn sounded, that costed him the heat. I think it was really tough for everybody on hand to see him go through something like that.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where you're kind of dumbfounded. Everyone was standing there with their jaws hanging down, wondering what just happened. Obviously taking off after the heat, you've lost your priority. Michel was up before the end of the heat, so it became Michel's wave. Seabass interfered with that, and when you have a drop in interference, your whole wave is eliminated, so you only count one wave. And at this level, impossible to win a heat like that.
And Michel locked in and needing such a big score. Sebastian thought he was playing a smart move by even eliminating any chance that he needed. Going into that venue, it's such a great one for Seabass as we'll stick with Wilco. Solid takeoff, well overhead, and just ends up sinking on the first turn. That wave went completely flat on the shoulder. So just had a 2:17 start. He'll stay in second with that incomplete turn.
Yeah, it's getting tricky, isn't it? I mean, there's the odd barrel out there still, but that tide is coming in very quickly. Probably another hour or so of that incoming water. So it's going to be tougher and tougher to find those tube rides. I think maneuvers will start coming into play.
We were talking about the interference for Sebastian Zietz. We'll show it to you now. This is what happened at the Hurley Pro at the last stop of the season. This venue at Lower Trestles is an event where Sebastian won as a pro junior way back in the day. Started off with an amazing rhythm. He was doing everything that you'd ever want to do at Lowers. Big carves, huge power torque off the top. He was ditching his fins in transition. A lot of variety. He just was the best surfer in this matchup as far as performance was concerned.
Oh, he was absolutely on fire. I mean, he was going to be hard to beat. You know, had he not made that mistake. I mean, look at that turn right there. Just a bag of tricks like no one else, as we said before, but, you know, little mistakes, and I think that's something that you've just got to try and iron out right here. The heat ends. Michel's up. He's waiting. The heat ends there before Seabass stood up. Michel knew that, and that's why Michel kind of got involved right there. And Seabass was wondering what is going on. And you can see him right now waiting to hear that result. It was shattering for Bourez. For Seabass, but Michel Bourez, he'll take that one.
That's right. Once you're in a competition, you get a gift. You try to take advantage of it. Michel ended up going down in that next matchup, which came a few heats later back at Lower Trestles. Seabass washed it off quickly, kept his composure, was super professional, even though it really did staying on the inside. He knows he's 22nd in the world. He's had a couple of years on tour. Seabass was a part of that exciting rookie class with Toledo, Nat Young. That was when Micro got hurt that season. What came in hot, won the Triple Crown. He's such a humble warrior. Even when he won the Triple Crown, talked about his win in Haleiwa, he said he wouldn't put himself as a contender for that. Well, he just won. Then he took that momentum, finaled at Sunset. He said, well, he's not the best at Sunset. He kept kind of pushing the accolades off himself. Quarters at Pipe sealed the deal, and I think he maybe then started realizing how good he is, on his home turf.
You know, Matty Wilco kind of very similar in the sense of, remember the Code Red Swell at Chopu? You know, he was completely terrified, but he was verbal about it. You know, he hit that pressure valve, released it by admitting the fact that he was so scared, didn't know what he was going to do when he got out there. But what he did was, because of that, the pressure was off for him to perform. He ended up having one of these best events ever, charging beyond imagination out there in some crazy heavy waves. So, I think once you admit to the fact that, hey, I'm not the favorite out there, I'm just going to go and see what I can do, it puts you in that really relaxed frame of mind, and sometimes that works.
What a place it was for Matty Wilkinson back in 2011. Had so many reef cuts all over his body. Actually, he was dealing with staph infection through the rest of the year. Cuts can get infected so quickly in Tahiti. I think everyone goes through that once you're surfing Chopu, and Wilco fought through that, turned in some great results. Big moment for Wilco was coming close to a major win at the CT level. It was when Steamer Lane kind of popped up as a one-off at the end of the season. He met Taj Burrow in that final and came up just short. It was actually extremely close, that matchup that season. It's such an interesting right-hander, which event's going to be happening there very soon. Wilco had won it at a QS level and done well a few times out there. He had a really good read. His backhand's so unique. It fits into those crazy kind of offbeat sections quite well.
Well, it's very similar to Nat Young, right? So it's got that different approach, that different attack, draws a different line. So it kind of works in those weird waves. I love Steamer Lane, by the way.
Yeah, you got some great memories there as well.
Yeah.
Well, what a classic part of Northern California. I guess technically Central California when we look at a map, but they're proud to be in that northern region in the surfing circles, much colder. And Wilco, a lot of success up there on both the qualifying series and the championship tour. Where you look at Seabass with his strengths, you always think about him at Pipe, doing well. Places like Cloudbreak, big barreling conditions. He's done well in Brazil as well at Barra da Tijuca, making the quarters. He hasn't yet broke a quarter-final moment in championship tour history yet for himself, but he still seems like he's got plenty of career ahead of him.
Yeah, I think so. And you talk about that result in Brazil. He took down John along the way. So, he's no slouch, this kid. I mean, he's the real deal as far as I'm concerned. He's good in the air. He's got, he's got some good moves, strong, powerful rail work. Charges in the big waves too. So, remember watching him at Chopu, just sliding into some crazy waves.
As we see bottom turn wrap combination for Matty Wilkinson. Drawing a nice high line cutty once again. Wraps it in the inside corner. And he'll fit that score into his top two. Just needed a 3.30 there. The few frontside hooks. Now let's hear from the winner of the last heat, Kai Otton's with Strider.
Down here checking it out over the shoulder, just watching the left barrels up the beach, trying to figure out whether they be getting on to round 3 or not. But Kai made it through one, got a nice little barrel.
Yeah, definitely found a diamond in the rough, didn't I? First 3 attempts, I think the waves are just so clampy, the tide's so high, and it's just really backwashy. You feel like you can't really control anything on the wave.
Well, you definitely find one. You always seem to find one. If left-hand barrels are out there, you search them out and you get them. Every event that they're there, we can pretty much bank on it.
Yeah, I mean, I love that sort of thing, don't I? I went a silly one again yesterday as I was trying to be sensible. I went out this morning and tried to be sensible and didn't go any silly ones, and went one small one and broke a board. So I know sometimes I can't win, but out there, yeah, definitely just found a little left nugget.
Well, congratulations on moving through. You said that the conditions were changing. Is that going through your mind in a heat, having to reposition and find different ways to surf a heat?
Oh, totally. Right now, it was a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. You watch all day. I did it yesterday, and the onshore came up in my heat, and then today the tide's come in so far that bank up there's even changed. So, yeah, you're always second guessing. I raced around and found big boards yesterday because I didn't have big enough boards, and now it's back down to kind of moderate size. So, yeah, it's a guessing game here almost.
Well, it seems like you've added everything up. The equation came out on top, so congratulations, and we'll see you in round 3.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Back to you guys.
Thanks, Strider and Kai Otton. See all the busy work that happens behind the scenes. Always make sure his equipment's dialed. Kai's not afraid to have about 15, 16 boards in his quiver for an event, especially the amount of boards he goes through at a wave like this. Right now, he'll be moving into round 3. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, was always the classic phrase guys like Andy used to say. See, like all that hard work he had to do round 1, round 2, and there's a ton of contests ahead of him.
Well, it's like building blocks, you got to start off with a solid base, get that momentum happening and just keep progressing, just keep building on your performance. You don't want to go out in round 1 and show your best performances. You want to do what you need to do to win heats. Make sure you've got some left in the tank and get that solid base happening first. Then once you hit the quarterfinals, semifinals and onwards, that's when you crank it up and let it all hang out.
Looking about the halfway mark of round 2, heat 11, we saw Wilco get that left before we talked to Kai. It turned into a 5.0. A few frontside hooks, getting just enough to take the lead. Seabass needing a 3.85 to get it back. So we see Wilco thinking well on his feet, an extra focus on building his ranking. He's sitting a little higher than Seabass, but they're basically in the same category. Wilco 19th in the world on the championship tour. His key result this year was that semifinal back at the Oi Rio Pro where he had a matchup with Bede Durbridge. Wilco was kind of on fire with the shifty little beach breaks, using his backhand, mixing it up really well. He came out of that matchup with Bede a little bit frustrated. He said Bede was all over him. He couldn't even move, but it got in his head. He was realizing that Bede had his number just with his positioning, and he said he started falling apart. He even asked him what he was doing, and Bede said, "You've got a big ability to win this heat, move to the final," but he wanted to be the guy. So I think Wilco kind of actually felt good after Bede kind of recognized his talent. He said, that made me feel a little better, but he was really disappointed that he didn't go the distance.
Well, he let Bede get in his head, didn't he? I mean, he ruffled his feathers, and Matty Wilco thought Bede was just going to sit back and let the surfing do the talking, but tactics came into play, and Bede used that against Matty Wilco, and it's another lesson for Matty to learn.
As we look at Matt Wilkinson on the Jeep leaderboard, there's 19th spot there. Jadson finaled out here in France last season. He's 20th in the world. Pupo 21, and that's right on the cutoff at 22 for requalification. This is Wilco now. A lot of foam on the face on this left. Little setup snap under the lip. Now chipping one off the top on the shoulder. He'll sneak out of there. Kai talking about the challenge. Thought he was going to need big boards today. Now size dropping just a touch. Wilco going to turns. Do you think that's going to be the difference in this heat, or can they still wait for a serious tube opportunity?
Well, I think there's going to be the odd one still that's going to come through with enough juice in it. It's going to hit the bank properly, but there's as you heard Kai say, found that diamond in the rough, and that's kind of what it is. I mean, it's a needle in a haystack at the moment. more like it, but very few and far between are the good ones. You've got to make sure you get 2 waves under your belt, and at the moment, Matty Wilco doing exactly that. A 5.0 on the wave before, and he's going to try and better a 2.17 just to increase his lead. Seabass, he's only needing a 3.85, but as we've seen, Joe, 3.85, that's kind of a pretty solid score out here today.
It sure is. That's been the big story throughout round 2 today, our first non-elimination round of the contest. If you guys are still wondering about round 3, we're waiting to get official word from our commissioner, Kieran Perro, or our deputy commissioner, Jesse Miley-Dyer, to see when we could possibly see heats for the Roxy Pro. Remember, on the women's side, we've got world number 1, Courtney Conlogue, back in yellow after a big win in Cascais. For the women, it's even getting down to a little bit more of a serious crunch time scenario. There's these crazy mathematical things going on behind the scenes in the WSL office, and Courtney does have a shot to potentially clinch a world title here in France.
Yeah, well, Carissa's got to get a 9th place and Courtney's got to win. So Courtney made the finals here last year. Tyler Wright was absolutely on fire in that heat and took it out, but Carissa's only had 6 9ths in her entire career, but 2 of those 9ths have already come so far this year.
Pulling in backhand Sebastian Zietz. You can see him get picked up and get sent over the falls. That's his 3rd wave ridden in round 2, heat number 11. Still chasing a 4.01 to avoid elimination. A tough thing that happened to Adam Melling in the last heat. Adams with Peter Mellon.
Yeah, tough one there. You had a lot of those barrels that didn't let you out. You're sitting 12th on the qualifying series, which is right there on the cusp. You're sitting 22 here on the championship tour. You've been on that border. How is it dealing with that kind of pressure going into each and every event?
Yeah, it's kind of hard, you need the results, especially coming into the back end of the year, and been nursing this injury through a couple of the QSs, which is like you got to make the decision whether to go or just get it better. But I had the ticket booked, so I did them anyway. But yeah, I guess coming into Hawaii, you want to be sitting pretty good, but I never have been, so I usually leave it till then. Might have to do it again this year.
And I noticed you said that you're talking to Kai after the heat, and you said that you felt like you wiggled your knee again. Is that something you can assess right now, or is it something that you're going to have to go check it out?
I'm going to have to check it out. It sort of got me on that last one where it bounced me up, and just in the whitewash getting thrown around, it sort of tweaked a bit sideways. I don't know how bad it is. I'm limping a little bit, but I'll have to get the doctors to have a look and see how we go.
And I got to ask you, there's braces and stuff like that, and you don't choose not to wear a brace. Is that something that you're not comfortable wearing one, or does it feel like it's good enough to ride on without it?
I've got tape and like a little neoprene thing, which sort of reminds you, but I guess I've used some of the bigger braces and that, and they just don't let me get in the position I want to be. I guess barrels, you probably should just wear it, but yeah, I guess I don't really like the feeling of it.
Well, I love Adam Melling's attitude. He's grinding, and he's right there, so we'll hope to see him in Hawaii.
That's right, Pete. Hawaii's like where he likes to really put on a big performance, and he reminds us he's always in this situation. It's nothing new for him. He has to put his head down, and he has been successful in re-qualifying every single season since he qualified for the championship tour. That's a feat in itself. There's only 34 spots available globally. There's some amazing talent out there, Potts. We talk about some free surfers that didn't automatically take a free surfing role. They took it because it's pretty challenging to dedicate your whole life to qualifying.
Yeah, and then you dedicate your life to qualifying and you don't. So that's kind of it's almost like a waste of money, really, isn't it? But it's tough, top 22 on the WCT, top 10 on the QS. It's not easy to do, especially when you've got guys double dipping. Got a lot of guys in the top 32 that need to back their results up, so they'll double dip. They'll surf in the QSs as well, which makes it harder.
Checking out Sebastian Zietz. Vertical hit, little late. Ditches the fins. He's down. Been just trying for a 4.01. Now Wilco's going to try to make him pay. Setting up that radical backhand just to set up carve. Warbly lip, but he'll find the pocket for a nice dagger. Fading that cutty to set up the inside track. Carving through that section off the top, throws it nice and vertical. And Wilco sits on it for the finish. Interesting wave with a lot of changes in speed, but he was able to find that one money turn to go vertical. He should be strengthening his lead against Sebastian Zietz.
Yeah, he's going to better at 2.33, that's for sure. I mean, that couple of nice backside turns. And we talk about that skill that he's got. You know, once he finds that groove, gets one big backside turn that he connects with, it almost flows into the next one. And we've seen him use that to great advantage, especially at Jeffreys Bay, then again this year in Brazil, where it's just rapid fire. It's almost like a confidence thing. Once he finds that turn, once he almost gets that foot in the sweet spot, it's good night, mister.
Love that approach. Let's check out this one more time.
Yeah, you can see drops down the bottom here, waiting for it. Just a little check turn right there. This is where it connects, right here. Bang! Beautiful snap, right tight in the pocket. Out on the open face, just nice and smooth, just waiting for it to stand up again, and then unloads a couple of beautiful turns here to finish things off. So Matty Wilco definitely starting to find the groove here. He's going to better his situation. Seabass at the moment needs a 4. It's going to be a little bit more next time the score gets dropped. This is the turn that kicked things off for him. Look at that technique right there. See how the body comes around, then the board follows right in the critical section. That's where you got to be. That's right in the guts of it. Out on the open face, look at that back foot, comes up the board a little bit. Almost like a snowboard move right there, just smooth as silk. And that's what you got to do. Mistake-free surfing is going to be the order of the day. And there's the score, Joe.
Scores in for Matty Wilkinson of 5.17. Sebastian now needs a 6.84 to make his comeback. Crazy when you look at that slow-mo replay. You look at a surfer's style. You can see how surfers surf when they have a ton of speed, but then you can really critique a surfer's style when they're in transition. When the wave's not helping them out too much, they have to stay light on their feet and just making it from start to finish really look pretty for the judges' eyes.
You know what I like about Matty Wilco, you know, when you slowed that right down, you know, his foot's on the back pad off the bottom, and then when he hooks it in the top, it's still on the pad, but then he gets out on that open face and that back foot comes forward, so it gives it a little less pressure on the fins, which just gets that speed coming all the way around.
Great technique and footwork from Matty Wilkinson to have the lead for the time being over Sebastian Zietz. Jadson taking on Miguel Pupo coming up next here at the Quicksilver Pro. We'll be right back. It's on. Round 2 action here at the Quicksilver Pro. Matty Wilkinson leading over Sebastian Zietz. As you can see, the competitors area there. We've got their locker rooms. A lot of great food being served throughout the day. They'll get a lift in the Jeep if they need to, surf a different bank. Right out front, and Seabass is looking for a comeback roll. Sebastian Zietz had a brilliant heat yesterday in round 1 when he had the matchup against wildcard Dane Reynolds. It was a tube shootout. Not just a barrel, getting barreled, the carves, the lines Seabass was taking were incredible.
I thought that heat was closer than the points showed. I think Sebastian surfed that heat really well. Dane obviously did win it, but you know, I thought Seabass surfed incredibly well. He's just got to keep that ball rolling though, you know. He's got to try and find a little bit more consistency. There's too many peaks and valleys for Seabass. I mean, he has a great heat, but then finds it hard to back it up. So, you know, that's what you've got to do on the World Tour. You've got to have consistently good results to re-qualify and go for that world title.
This is Wilco looking to better a 5.0. Big bottom turn. Nice timing on the backside snap. Just good for one move, and he's out. So that won't be affecting his scoreline. Just setting up that bottom turn. His rail work already looks iconic when he's setting up that first move.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of exciting, you know, once he gets that bottom turn going and really leans over you know what's coming next, and that big backside hook. So, you know, Matty Wilco's definitely one that puts it on the rail, and we love to see that.
So now down to 3 minutes in round 2, heat number 11. Commissioner's office very busy making a decision for the rest of the day. Still Jadson Pupo to come up next. Remember, Andre made the final last year, runner-up to John Florence. This is Seabass with a ton of speed on the right, looking for a huge float, a lengthy one that he completes, coming into some clear water, layback hack, just to show that radical freestyle approach that he has. Always unpredictable. Almost thought he was going to go for an air to start off that way.
I know, the speed that he got, right, it was definitely what he was looking for there, but that floater, I mean, how long do you want to spend on the roof of the wave? That was some hang time there for Seabass. Showing something different. I like it. We haven't seen any of that, really. It's been sort of maneuvers, yes, but something like that is different. The judges are going to like it. Is it going to be enough, though? Needs a 6.84 at this stage. Matty Wilco with a pair of 5s. Seabass, let's have a look. Takes off and knows he's got to get going. Flying down the line. And look how long he sits on top of the roof right there. Free falls down. Beautiful technique. Off the bottom. Jams it right there. Beautiful maneuver there from Seabass. Where is that going to fit into the scale right now? The judges are having a good think about it. Time ticking away. 1 minute 40 seconds. Seabass needs a 6.84.
So crunch time for Sebastian Zietz. Minute 30 remaining. Talked about the tough loss of lowers. We know he's surfing top notch. His game is sharp. Just needs to make a good decision if he gets another chance in this heat. Well, it's getting a little bit closer. Last score in for the two-turn combo, 4.83. Seabass now needs a 5.34 for the win under the priority of Matty Wilkinson.
Time is the enemy though, Joe. 1 minute remaining. Seabass is kind of on a different section of the bank right now. He's moved way up to the left, so these guys are really created some distance between each other. 55 seconds to go. Ocean's gone a little quiet right now. And that's a funny thing. Even when it's pumping, Joe, we get those quiet moments. And Seabass is desperately needing a wave, 5.34.
The thing that is going Seabass's way is just not being next to Wilco since he doesn't have priority. So he's not going to have to worry about that. He just needs another opportunity. Lengthy float, one of the longer floats we've seen in a while, to a little layback jam off the top. Got the 4.83 that put him in contention to try to turn this one around. If he loses this heat, it'll be an equal 25th. Tough place to be when you're right on the cutoff mark with only 2 events remaining on the championship tour. A couple of little lines coming out the back. And Wilco could be considering one of these before we close out this heat. Looks like we're into the countdown, and we will be making this one official. Matt Wilkinson with a 5 and a 5.17. Had to think his way through this matchup against Sebastian Zietz. Zietz had his late comeback with the 4.83, but just a little bit too late, and he's knocked out of the event. Wilco trying to find some rhythm as well after a tough loss to Italo Ferreira at lower trestles, and he'll be back into round 3 to compete in the Quicksilver Pro.
Yeah, tough loss there for Seabass. You know, after a good heat yesterday, surfed really well, but conditions so tricky, and some low scores there.
Coming up next, we'll close out round 2 with Jadson Andre and Miguel Pupo. We'll bring in Ronnie Blakey and Ross Williams for the call.
And welcome back to the Quicksilver and Roxy Pro as we finish out men's round 2. Got heat 12 in the water. I've got the commissioner and of the women's tour, and usually you know what that means. What's going on for the rest of the afternoon?
Yeah, we've been watching it all day here for the women, and it's got, it looks really, really nice right now. And we are going to go into women's round 1. There's going to be some really good heats, and I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity for the women out there right now. And it looks really beautiful. I'm really jealous, actually.
And I got to ask you, you guys have been poring over it, talking to Elaine and so forth. In regards to the winds, are we going to have these kind of winds hopefully hold?
Yeah, I'm hoping that it holds like this for the rest of the afternoon. And, we've been down here since really early this morning. And as you've seen, throughout the day, it's changed a lot. When we first came down here, it was, big and barreling, heaving kind of, it looks really tricky. And right now it's all kind of cleaned out as the day's gone on. So, it's looking really, really nice out there. And I'm happy to be able to get the women out in the water.
Well, thank you for the information. As we have heat number 12, the Brazilians are at it again. These two have been battling it out. So heat number 12, then we move into the Roxy for round 1, and that tide will be dropping. So maybe the girls will get barreled.
Well, let's hope so, Pete, as we see Jadson Andre dropping to the bottom of a medium-sized wave, a runner-up in this event last year. And sticking with this one, just looking to get some points on the board nice and early. An approaching section, Jadson hits it. Nothing too risky, but plenty of flow. And he's still working this one over, brings it right through to the shore break. And he'll jump on the back of the ski and head back to the lineup. Miguel Pupo out the back now with priority. And Miguel's going to swing on this one. Drives off the bottom, stylish bottom turn. Gets under the lip, unleashing a bit of power. This wave's starting to fatten up. But Miguel's going to stick with it, just hoping for a reform on the inside. A little slow for tubes out there at the moment. So both these surfers relying on some turns to get some early scores on the board. Ronnie Blakey joined by former CT surfer Ross Williams. Ross, two goofy footers fighting it out for a spot in round 3. Who do you like for the win?
This is a pretty tough one here. Definitely a coin toss, but I kind of think Miguel Pupo is going to get the jump on Jadson Andre. I think Miguel's had a little bit of momentum switch for him at lowers. He was lighting it up a few waves, had a couple of good heats. So I think Miguel may just get him, but that's what's cool about these last few heats of the round. Very even seeds, right there close together on the rating, so it's a coin toss. You can see Miguel Pupo right here. Always has a beautiful style. Pretty late committed hit there. Really nice snap there on the outside. Big wave for Miguel. That tide is pretty high right now. So maneuvers are going to go a long way. If you can get a barrel out here right now, that's definitely a bonus. As Miguel just kind of, all these waves, you might as well ride them in. You're going to get a ride back out on the ski.
Numbers starting to roll on through from the judges for that first exchange. Not going to be any massive scores notched up by these competitors. 26 minutes to go. A 4.1 for Miguel Pupo, a 3.33 for Jadson Andre. And here we go. Miguel taking off, tucking into the tube. Bit of a chandelier section for him to punch through there, provided by Jadson Andre. Is he still running through this pit? Well, that is going to be interesting because the foam filled up that barrel. I'm pretty sure it was Jadson that had a look at that wave.
Jadson was, you saw his hands up in the air. He had priority, so he's trying to signify to the judges, hey, I wanted that wave. But guess what? He didn't paddle for it, so kind of strange. You'd think, hey, if you really wanted it, you should have paddled for it. But he had priority, so very interesting situation here for the judges.
Just over 25 minutes to go. The call has been made. We'll be moving into the first round of the Roxy Pro after this last heat of round 2. Let's check out the replay and see what unfolded here.
So keep in mind, right on the shoulder is Jadson. He has priority. Right there, he's like, hey, I want it to go. So he's got a really good case, actually, Ronnie. He could say, hey, I wanted to paddle into it, but right there you can see he stopped. He didn't want to endanger Miguel Pupo, so I think he stopped. That's a good call. If he would have dropped in, he'd have been free-falling right on Miguel's head. So the judges got some work cut out for him. I think it's an interference. The wave was a gem. Look at that thing, Ronnie. That was lined up right across the bank. Had Jadson not been there, Miguel would have got a perfect barrel.
Well, this might be the best wave we've seen in maybe 3 heats.
If I had to take a guess, I'm calling that's an interference. So pretty interesting. We'll see what the judges do with this. Again, Jadson had priority and was hindered. He could not catch that wave. Miguel was on it.
Waiting to see what unfolds there. An interesting situation. Typically, if you want to utilize your priority, the best thing you can do is get to your feet, paddle into that wave.
Yeah. If he does not get the call, Jadson Andre that is, if he doesn't get that interference on Miguel, that's the mistake. He should have just went anyways, but it was definitely, it would have been pretty crazy. You know, I think he would have been close to free falling right on Miggy's head. After all, they are buddies. You know, he didn't want to hurt the guy, so he didn't go. But kind of trippy. You know, most times you see guys just go. If they have priority, they're going.
Interesting situation there. No decision made as of yet. 23.5 minutes to go. Miguel Pupo scored a 1.43. His first wave of 4.1. He is out in front at this stage of the game. 23 minutes remaining. Two of the real young guns on the championship tour. Jadson Andre, he burst onto the scene back in 2010. Actually won a CT event as a rookie, beating Kelly Slater in the final at the Santa Catarina Pro in Brazil. He had a couple of years where he finished down the back end of the ratings and then fell off tour at the end of 2012. Missed 2013 as a result. Bounced back last season. And with a huge result here in France, a runner-up finish to John Florence ensured that he'd be on the championship tour for 2015, but it has been a struggle for him. He's in second spot in this heat, needing a 2.21 to climb into the lead. And he's having a look at this wave with just on 22.5 minutes to go. Jadson drives off the bottom. The 25-year-old getting a nice, tight, clean turn to start things off. This wave's starting to flatten out though. Will he stick with it? Hoping for that clean reform on the inside. Well, no points being added to the score at the moment. And he calls for the ski. Just over 22 minutes to go. Let's check in with the winner of the last heat with Strada Wasilewski.
Boys, oh man, not a lot on offer out there, but the backside, we went to the lethal whips.
Yeah, it was a pretty tricky heat. There was a few really slow heats before mine, and the tide's still coming up, and those barrels have kind of stopped, so kind of made a plan to get a couple of scores and then hopefully sit out the back and hunt a big barrel, but the only barrel that came through landed straight on my head, so I don't know, I was lucky Bass wasn't out in the spot for that one, but yeah, other than that, I just kind of picked waves that I could do turns on and put a couple of scores on the board.
I noticed you're surfing with a bit of an injury. You have a broken hand?
Yeah, I had a little head rush after a close heat at Trestles and punched my locker and broke my hand, which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done, but I don't know, it's supposed to still be in a cast, but I took it off and it doesn't hurt too much, so I'm not too worried about that. Bit of adrenaline and pressure kind of makes me forget about it.
There you go. Congratulations on moving on through to round 3. Can't wait to see some more out of you, Wilco.
Cheers.
All right, back to you, boys.
Thank you, Strada, as we see Miguel Pupo up once again. Just working this medium-sized wave over. Bringing it right through to the inside now. Miguel finds himself just inside the top 22 at this stage, in 21st position coming into this contest. And he milks all he can out of that wave. 22.5 minutes to go. He climbs on the back of the ski. We've got some waves approaching out the back. Let's see if Jadson Andre can get in position. No call yet whether there was an interference earlier on. Miguel Pupo might have dodged the bullet.
Yeah, I think, you know, unless they're really taking their time on it, I didn't see even a judge's replay pop up on our screen. Sometimes that's evidence that they're taking a look at it. So maybe they just thought it was a non-call, but clearly Jadson thought he had priority. So if anything unfolds there, we'll definitely fill you in. No big scores though running just yet.
What about Matt Wilkinson? Throwing a couple of hooks into his locker after his heat loss at Trestles.
Yeah, he's pegged as the happy-go-lucky fun guy on tour, and he is. But you know, he's very competitive and really turned up the heat in the last year or so. And he's got Micro in his corner, trying to keep him as competitively savvy as possible. So he burns hot.
Well, here we go. Jadson Andre almost losing his footing there for a moment. He's going to kick out of that wave. Just over 19 minutes to go. Matt Wilkinson in 19th position coming into this contest. Wants to keep moving through these early rounds. Hasn't done a lot of work on the QS this year, so really backing himself to qualify through the CT. Just under 19 minutes remaining in this heat in the water. And it started in a pretty interesting way. Miguel Pupo without priority, swinging on what was a beautiful wave, and Jadson, even though he was down the line a little further, it looked like he wanted to have a crack at that wave, but didn't want to run over his buddy, so he held back.
That'll be interesting to get his opinion of what happened, because if it is a non-call, I'm sure the judges will be thinking, well, he didn't catch the wave, he didn't paddle for it. He was too busy kind of signaling to us rather than paddling for the wave. So, I'm guessing if that's the non-call issue, that's what happened.
And you've just got to think in that scenario, if nothing does happen, when someone's got priority, you can't just sit on the shoulder and wave your arms and,
right.
and force an interference.
And that's fair. That's definitely the way to look at that. He definitely stopped paddling pretty early, but the only case he has is say, hey, you know what? I didn't want to free fall right on Miguel's head. Had he committed for that wave, it would have been a bit of a late drop. It would have taken him time to get to his feet. So that's, I just would love to hear what he's going to say about that whole scenario.
Well, just over 17 and a half minutes to go. And here we go. This is Jadson Andre now. Looking for his best score. He finds some cover. He gets the exit, drives off the bottom now. Big layback jam. And climbs up over the lip once again. A solid wave, a couple of big turns to finish off. And the crowd, well, they're eating it up.
And Jadson Andre sitting at 20th in the ratings, and it is risky. If you kind of hang your hat on just a CT only, you don't do many QS events. As you said, Matty Wilkinson has kind of chosen to do this year. It's a risky way to run your year. Yeah, you'll have more time on your hands. You'll have more room to breathe in between events. But if you don't make that top 22, it's lights out.
It's an interesting heat, this one, because these two are side by side on the Jeep leaderboard at this stage. Jadson in 20th, Miguel in 21st. They're fighting against one another for a jump on the ratings here.
And Miguel found some magic at lowers. What did he get there, Ronnie?
Miguel had a decent result. He had a 9th place finish over there at lowers. It's one of his favourite stops on the championship tour.
He's had a shocker of a year, but he definitely reconnected at lowers. He had that extra spark that we're used to seeing him. He's such a well-rounded surfer. We're used to seeing him in a top 16. So as we see Jadson Andre hooking into a clean left, little barrel there, not too deep. Nice little layback snap there, and then finishes it off with a third maneuver. So received a 5.43 for his efforts. Solid score, but nothing to write home about.
A lot of room left in the scale here for something special. Just under 16 minutes to go. It must be a bit of a rattle when you have a scenario like that in the early part of a heat. It kind of throws your game plan out. Neither surfer was able to capitalise, so really there's not too much cause for concern, but I'm sure Jadson's frustrated because it was a good looking wave, and I'm sure Miguel's frustrated because he could have locked into a big score. Here goes Miguel once again, and he's going to find his way through this one. A lot of foam on the face. He's just hanging on, and he's trying to add some more points now down the line. Gets the big float to finish. A decent ride, a good size set. We'll see how it compares to Jadson's 5.43. Good exchange from these two Brazilians.
Another left there. You saw Jadson having a quick look. Look how clean it is right now. Unbelievable, spotless conditions. Pretty good barrel though there for Miguel Pupo. He definitely was hiding behind the curtain there. As you see him waving for the ski, sitting by the shore break, he's waiting for that free ride.
A lot of waves being ridden in this heat. Here goes Jadson once again. Quick cover up. You can see how hard it is to read the wall when all that foam gets on the face. You just don't have that grip with your fins. You start to lose a bit of balance.
Yeah, that's right. You start kind of surfing through that soupy foam, and your fins will get a little loose and squirrely. It's hard to predict where your board's going to track. And, Ronnie, you're spot on, too, about the call the non-call for Jadson at the beginning of this heat, as we see Miguel get pretty deep right there. I know this is away from us. That's always going to be pretty tricky today. Again, these competitors, for the most part of the day, they've been 200-300 yards down the beach, so the judges have to really decipher how deep was he. It's all, that perspective is pretty tough. But for Jadson Andre, thinking, wow, did Miguel Pupo just get an interference? That's kind of a free ticket into the next round, and all of a sudden you're just waiting for a call. There's no call. So mentally, he really had to kind of batten down the hatches and reconnect with this heat.
Just over 13 and a half minutes to go. And Jadson Andre is holding onto the lead, waiting on scores to come through for Miguel Pupo. Beautiful day down here in the southwest of France. Big crowd on offer to watch this second round unfold, and starting to get excited about the start of the Roxy Pro, which is going to get underway directly after this heat between Jadson and Miguel. Let's check out the Jeep leaderboard here, and we'll see where these two surfers are placed coming into this clash. 20th for Jadson Andre. Miguel just in 21st spot. You can see Matt Wilkinson just above them. He's already progressed through to round 3, so he's done the job there in keeping ahead of these two surfers. But one of these guys is really going to benefit from moving through this heat, and the other could potentially be finding themselves on the outside of the top 22 at the end of this contest.
This is a big heat here for both these guys, and for Jadson Andre, it's kind of a testament to how much of a scrapper he is. He's had a rough year, and he's still in the top 22, sitting at 20th. He's had a rough year on the QS as well. Hasn't been getting those big results he's used to. So even though he's been scrapping, getting a lot of really pretty crummy results, he's still hanging in there.
It's just such a funny time of year. We're going to do a lot of talking about the title race, obviously, a lot of talking about requalification, and sometimes you forget about the talent that's in the middle of those two stories, because those guys, they're pretty much safe for next year. The pressure is off, and they're just going to be able to flare up and really cause some huge upsets, create some headaches for those guys trying to requalify, throw the spanner in the works of some of our title front runners. It's going to get pretty interesting in these next 3 contests.
Yeah, it really is, and I think Europe too. It's also a place where you can become complacent and forget, the gravity of how important results are.
Here's Jadson Andre taking a good size set. Let's see if this thing starts to open up when it hits the sandbar on the inside. Jadson's hoping so. He grabs the wall. He's stalling. He finds some cover. A wobbly cut back there, but hangs onto it. And he'll kick out with just over 11 minutes to go, looking to chase down a 3.77 in order to move into the lead. We're going to take a quick break. We'll let you know if Jadson got the number he needed to move ahead of Miguel Pupo in Heat 12 of round 2. There is 10 minutes remaining in the last heat of round 2 here at the Quik Pro France 2015. This is stop 9 on the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. 2 Brazilians fighting it out for a spot in round 3. Miguel Pupo leading over Jadson Andre. Jadson needed a 3.77 on his last wave to get in the lead. He got a 3.5, so not enough. And he's still hunting out there. He wants to get this win and put his case forward for a spot on the Championship Tour for 2016. It looks nice and clean out there still, Ross. Conditions have remained that way from the outset this morning. It was nice and offshore, a crisp offshore blowing. It's pretty warm out there now, but really it's just beautiful.
And I think the reason why we've seen such low scores, even though the conditions are beautiful, it's such a pretty day, and the wind is really light, but there's always that potential of an amazing barrel, and there's kind of some barrels around. So I think the scale is set to where the judges are just waiting for something crazy to happen. So when they see a couple of cutbacks in a floater, they don't get too excited. So it's kind of frustrating for the surfers because they're not hearing that positive reinforcement of 8.5, 7.9. They're hearing a lot of 4s and 3s today.
Well, it hasn't been since early on when we saw Jeremy Flores, Kelly Slater out there in the lineup that we've seen those really hefty heat score totals put together. So it does suggest that, well, it's either very tricky out there and hard to get barreled and even do turns, or maybe these guys just aren't the form surfers in the draw here at the moment.
I think definitely it's more just tricky. It's really tough to connect the best waves out there, and the section of the bank that we're at here for the stretch of beach that we're on, it's one of the worst. It's really tricky. It's the swells are kind of stretching down the coast a little bit. You see some good rides going down, but a lot of the guys that are getting good rides are on jet skis. So that's the kind of conditions we're dealing with here with this long interval. It's really tough to get to the wave, that's breaking. It's kind of shifting.
Miguel Pupo, he's seeking an update on the situation from the onside announcers. He is hanging on to the lead with a 5.1 and a 4.1. Jadson's looking for a 3.77. Miguel's got a pretty decent track record here at the Quicksilver Pro. 2 quarterfinal finishes. Has never bowed out in the second round, but has had a couple of round 3 exits also. Jadson Andre, we know that his best result here was a runner-up finish last season. He's had a pretty good run through the second round too. Never bowed out here, but has had a couple of 13th and a 9th place finish in this event before. So these guys pretty evenly matched, really, coming into this clash. Both have a pretty decent record here at the Quicksilver Pro, but there's some differences in their approach, and we're going to see Jadson's ride now. So much speed, gets under the lip, almost stomps a big backhand floater there, 6.5 minutes, and that difference in approach between these two competitors, Ross, is really style. That's the obvious difference.
Yeah. Jadson and, their approach to the wave is slightly different too. Jadson, known for he has more pop in his surfing. When he won that first CT when he was a rookie, he was great at doing those air reverses. So he kind of has a different look for the wave. He's looking for those ramps a lot.
Well, 6 minutes to go, and we're going to hear from Pete Mell and Sebastian Zietz.
Seabass, it's hard for us to watch too, and when you're surfing that good and you're just having these tough breaks, it must be a bit frustrating.
I was just come down this morning and see how firing it was. Was like so excited all day to get out there and get barreled, and then to watch it kind of get higher and higher and guys start doing turns, and I think I was just kind of a little bit confused on what board to ride. We have waves like this all the time at home, and I always ride my short board, and just kind of played into the head game of everybody, I'm riding a step up, so yeah, I probably should have rode a shortboard out there, I guess.
So that's kind of what you're taking away from this. I know you learned a valuable lesson at Trestles, but then here you probably should have stuck to your guns and rode a shortboard.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't just get DQ'd at the end, but just stick to what I know, and at home it's like shortboard or die no matter what. So but the waves just didn't come to me, and I kind of made a bad mistake coming over to this side at the end, but thought I saw some kind of rip current bowl, but that kind of disappeared too. So just tough conditions, and shake it off, go surf a little reform down the way, and hopefully have a good session.
Coming into some events though that are right up your alley. You've got the Triple Crown barreling over there at Peniche, so those are positive signs.
Yeah, totally. I hope that we get waves over there in Portugal, because that's one of the best sandbars in the world, and really close to the beach, and kind of consistently the same deal, not like here where the tide changes it so much. There it's kind of usually close in and barreling, so yeah, hopefully get swell, and then hopefully it's backdoor.
All right, Seabass, thanks for taking the time. Just a bit of an update. Just found out that Laura Enever actually is going to be pulling out of the Roxy Pro. She had sustained an injury yesterday surfing. Separated shoulder, doesn't want to aggravate it anymore. She knows how important that QS, that last QS is in order to get herself a nice solid ranking. So she has decided to pull out. Just an update.
Well, thank you, Pete. Yeah, we did know about the injury that Laura Enever suffered, but that's a shame. She's had to withdraw from the contest, and I believe Pauline Ado, former CT surfer, is going to take that place. She's going to be a major threat too. She's a really good surfer. Spent a number of years taking on the best in the elite ranks, so a very worthy recipient of that injury wild card, or that replacement, I should say. Here we go, Jadson having a look at that one. Didn't get into it, just over 3 minutes to go. Jadson, he only needs a 3.77. He's willing to take a chance on some of these insiders.
That is the worst. Ronnie, as you know, surfers paddling as hard as you can for a wave and not getting in is so frustrating. You could see he was yelling at that wave at the top of his lungs.
Well, here he goes. He's going to have a look at this one. He'll get into it. Jadson drops to the bottom, straight up into the pocket. Only needs a 3.77. He's still got to do some work to get that number. Hoping this wave stands up as he brings it through to the inside. It is starting to flatten out a little bit, but he keeps his board moving. He's going to need an exciting finish in order to convert this into a big number. A lot of bump on the face. He's calling for the ski. 2.5 minutes. He'll be able to get back out there and maybe get one more shot at it.
3.77. That is so close. I don't want to say for sure he's got it. I mean, the one thing that's a pause for concern for Jadson and getting the score there is their roundhouses. They weren't those committed big hooks right in the pocket that the judges love.
I was going to say for sure he hasn't got it. Just based off how low the scale has been for this heat, we've seen a couple of barrels already, and Jadson's had a tube on the left and come out and done a couple of turns and only received a 3.5.
Is that first maneuver there, Ronnie? Cut back. Second maneuver, cut back. Yeah, so for sure the scale set really low.
Here it is again. The wave just flattened out a bit on him at the start.
Looks so much better from the front view. That first turn looked, it was decent, and then just a cutback, but that high tide, that wave not reforming. If he would have had a reform and wouldn't have been able to hit the lip on the inside, then for sure I think he would have got it.
My vibe is the judges, just from this perspective, have been shaving a few points off the lefts, just not giving the guys too much credit for those barrels unless they're really, really deep and clearly deep in the tube, because you can kind of hide in the pocket somewhat. And on that occasion, Jadson, he only received a 2.93. So he's still chasing a 3.77. There's just over 1 minute remaining.
And that's why he was frantically calling for the ski. I think he himself even knew where the scale set, and he didn't think he was going to get the score, so he wants to get back out there.
Well, here we go. He's got a wave. He's been barreled on this one already. There's a nice turn too. Really committing to that turn, drawing it out, bashing the lip, and he likes it. That one feels a little closer to the score. 50 seconds to go. And the girls are going to be getting excited for the Roxy Pro too, because the tide's filled up pretty nicely. There's some long running rights. We've seen a couple of lefts too. And occasionally there's still that magic set wave. So the ladies in the first round will be enjoying that. Here's the replay of Jadson's last ride.
Okay, quick barrel. Nice little snap there, and this off the lip a little more exciting right in the pocket. He even got airborne just for a second. So, the surfing wasn't excellent, but he doesn't need much of a score. He only needs a 3.7.
He's going to have to put $100 in Kelly's tip jar, that's for sure. The surfers made a pact with each other at the start of the year. If you claimed a wave and it wasn't in the excellent range, you had to put $100 in the jar. I don't know who's been paying their bills.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was going to say. That thing's going to be full. There's been a lot of claims this year under sixes.
Well, that heat has come to an end. We're just waiting on the scores to drop for the last wave of Jadson Andre. Miguel Pupo, he kind of lost touch with his rival out there in the final stages. He could have dominated the lineup with priority, but Jadson was pretty sneaky, very cunning competitor.
The judges aren't quick to throw the score down. They're watching this replay. And again, none of these maneuvers were excellent. They were just decent. They were in the pocket. 3.77 though, with the way the scale's set right now, it's going to be tough.
I was still looking back to those earlier rides. This is Miguel Pupo, this was a 4.1 at the start of the heat. That first turn that Miguel did was a monster. It was the best turn of the heat. A 4.1 was the score. And Jadson's trying to get pretty close to that in order to take this heat from Miguel. I'm not sure if he's going to do it. It's going to be very close.
And he also received a 5.1. So I believe this is the 5.1. Little shampoo barrel. Decent. Cut back. You know, the wave on its own merit is much better than Jadson's. But also a little bit sleepy. You know, nothing crazy. So
I don't know.
You're not buying it. Yeah,
I don't know what to think. It's just interesting that
they want to watch everything.
They're watching every single wave from the heat.
5.43 for Jadson. That's his best score. Had to really wipe off a ton of speed and kind of manufacture this barrel. Right from the get-go, this heat was Funky Town. That was, you know, not on the mark there for Jadson. Kind of a funny cutback. You talk about how different their styles are. Jadson, you know, not only does he look for different kind of sections on a wave, but his style is also much more funky than Miguel's. He always looks like he's wearing oven mitts to me. He's got his hands kind of flopping around. But he's a classic surfer, really exciting, unpredictable.
We're just waiting for the numbers to drop from the judges. It's a tough call. It's such a close heat. They've been working with a pretty small scale throughout this clash, throughout the day, really.
Throughout the day.
A 3.77 needed. The numbers starting to drop. A couple of judges say yes, a couple say no. It is going to be super close.
There's that tricky beach break that Jadson has to negotiate.
And the number comes through. It's a 3.77. And Jadson just gets the number.
Oh, look at him.
And he is psyched. He's moving on through to round 3. You can't believe it. A 3.77. Miguel Pupo. Well, he has fallen out of the contest. It was a tie, but Jadson had the highest scoring ride. So he moves on through on the back of that. An interesting way to finish the second round. We'll no doubt be talking a lot about that in the post-show this afternoon. Another heat all tied up.
What a trippy heat.
And a really crucial heat for Jadson to move through.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what his thoughts on that interference or non-interference.
That was just, well, it was an ugly heat from the outset. There was the best wave kind of got blown, really. Miguel pulled into it. He didn't have priority. Jadson looked to utilise priority and actually crumbled the section down. He didn't even get into the wave, but he wrecked it for Miguel. Even though he had priority, it was almost like an interference could have gone against him.
You brought that up earlier, and I think that's a really interesting point. It's tough to be, you know, find new ground in competitive surfing. We see so many heats, but that definitely was one of the funniest heats I've seen in a while.
Looking forward to having a chat to the winner, Jadson Andre, in a moment. But when we come back, we'll kick off the first round of the Roxy Pro. Don't go anywhere. Kelly keeping busy. He's having a look at a nice clean insider once again.